I'd like to call the February 15, 2011 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission to order. And as always, we'll start with the pledge, if you'll join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and I will lead the invocation today. Let us pray. God, thank you for the opportunity to hold this position, this office. Thank you for the chance to represent the good people of Buncombe County. Thank you for this beautiful place that we live and the choices that you let us make every day. Give us wisdom to make good choices for our community, knowledge, humility, patience, and compassion for both the world you've given us and the people we represent. Thank you for the time to meet and talk and reason with others, and give us all the patience and ability to make decisions that are pleasing to you. Finally, thank you for the Spirit you give us. This Spirit is something that makes us different from every other creature in your kingdom. Thank you for everything. Amen.
Amen.
We will start with ethics reminder. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by this Commission, it is the duty of every board member to avoid both actual and apparent conflicts of interest. Does any board member know of any apparent or possible conflict of interest with any matter coming before our board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
All right. Next, we're going to take up a motion to follow the agenda, but before we do this, I would like to explain one part of the agenda. We have on the agenda an adoption on the consent agenda and a motion to adopt the recommendations of our county manager concerning our compensation package. Specifically, Dr. Green has recommended adjustments in the package of reducing our travel allowance from $650 every biweekly to $320, and $100 in our technology allowance from $175 every 2 weeks to $25. This would represent a 30% decrease in the compensation package that we receive on the board. I would just like to say a couple things, and I want to talk to everybody that's here because I think a lot of you want to hear this and want to understand this. When this came up, every member on this board was called by me. I spoke to every one of them, and each of them said 4 things to me. They said, number 1, we need more information so we can make a good decision on what's fair. Number 2, they said we're going to be fair and reasonable no matter what the political or the public opinion is, because that's what we're elected to do. Thirdly, they said we want to be open and honest and be above board on everything we're doing here. And finally, each one of these commissioners immediately said we're going to do the right thing. And this is on our consent agenda. We are going to, if this motion for the consent agenda is passed, we will handle it that way. And we want you to know that we understand we're paid well, and we want you to understand that we are public servants. And this is what we do, and we looked at everything, and the county manager's recommendations is something I think this board will pass. So, with that said, is there a motion to pass the consent agenda, including the adoption of the county manager's recommendations on our reduction in pay.
I so move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Out of order. Any discussion among the board? All those in favor of adopting the consent agenda as well as the agenda as we discussed, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. We adopt the consent agenda, including the reduction in pay of 30% of our compensation package, which is the first time in known history that Buncombe County officials have reduced their pay. Next item on the agenda will be, well, I have a question. Well, okay, that's fine. Next is, I'm going to introduce Commissioner Carol Peterson, who's our representative to our Public Health Board, to introduce Gibby Harris. Commissioner Peterson.
It's my distinct pleasure to introduce to those of you who may not know her, Gibby Harris, who is the health director here in Buncombe County, and we are so proud of this lady. Within the past week and a half, I guess, she was named the North Carolina Association of Local Health Directors Director of the Year. Now, please take into consideration there are 100 counties in North Carolina, and this lady has come out as the #1 health director in North Carolina. We are absolutely thrilled about this. She's taken the health of the citizens of Buncombe County to her heart, actually. She works every day from morning to night to make sure that the citizens of Buncombe County have the best health care situation, public health care that they could have, and we're so proud of what she's doing, and we'd like to take this opportunity to recognize her for these efforts and ask her to say a word or two.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson, and everyone else on the board, and whoever else is here today as well. This is a real honor for me. When I look at my colleagues who have had this position over the past years, I'm honored to be part of that group. It's important for me to let you know that this is a team effort, that everybody on my team, which all my staff, the people in the community that we work with, all of those folks are necessary for us to do the job that we need to do. But I'm also grateful to the commissioners, to my Board of Health, as well as to county management to have given me the opportunity to lead this effort in Buncombe County. It's an honor and it's a pleasure, and this is a great place to be doing public health. There's lots of opportunity here, and we're looking forward to continuing to improve the health of this community as we move forward. So thank you for recognizing this honor.
Thank you.
I'd share the plaque with you, but they took it back. They misspelled a word on it. Oh, no.
Thank you, Gibby. Thank you for the wonderful work. Next up, we have the county manager report. And Dr. Green, while you're coming up there, we did approve the personnel ordinance. If you could talk about that during your report also, that would be good.
Okay. I'll do that first. In our personnel ordinance, there is a provision that in April of each year, we will adjust pay based in the pay plan based on the CPI as of December 31st of the previous year. Those numbers are now in, and they're 1.5%. We are currently looking at a 10% reduction in every department. We're having meetings with all our department heads right now. And when we look at those numbers, in order to implement that, to go ahead with it, would be $1.1 million. And we are asking, or have asked, that you suspend that provision and that we not provide the CPI at this point in time. We just really can't ask departments to come up with a 10% reduction while we're adding $1.1 million to the overall expense. So that's what we've asked you to do. It will be suspended, and we'll look again next year to see.
And it's something we can revisit, can we not, depending on the numbers from the state and as we go further along the budget process, if the numbers are good. We don't expect them to be good, but we can we have that
love for them
prerogative.
to be
don't we?
good. I can't tell you how much I'd love for the numbers to be good because it's been very difficult for the departments to come in with their 10% reductions. We're making good progress, but if we see better numbers, we will certainly know that when we bring you a budget in May, and then as we see what the state does. Although we are hearing the state will adopt a budget by 1st of June, and I just really hope that's true, so that we all know what to expect.
Okay.
But that's
And we've
so-
adopted that. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I want to thank you for giving me just a minute to address a couple of issues that have come up in the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's been a very, very busy 2 weeks looking at all the things that we do in the county. And I just wanted to share for a minute what we look at every day as we organize and reorganize and run this county. And I wanted to make sure that we had an apples-to-apples comparison because counties are not structured alike across the state. Every county's organizational chart's a little bit different, and compensation is a little bit different in each of them. And when you read the numbers in isolation, you don't often see how we compare with other organizations. We've consolidated and merged a lot of functions, and most of our department heads wear several hats. They don't just wear one. 10 years ago, as a matter of fact, 10 years ago this month, because in 2001, 2002, we went through something that I thought was really bad then, and I think that this budget might be worse than what we experienced 10 years ago. But we eliminated all of our assistant department heads. And our assistant managers both continue to be department heads, one of the largest departments in the county that's seen tremendous growth in caseload, and the other of a department where we're seeing a lot of activity related to land use and ordinances and changes and regulations. First, I would tell you, I always appreciate people's honest feedback. We want to hear what they think. People have good ideas, and we can take a look at everything they come up with, and maybe we can be doing something different. So when we hear from people, we want to look at what they've got to say. I also want to tell you we have a great staff, and they do really, really good work. And I think they keep the citizens' needs first and foremost. And I could just go with example after example. We had a wonderful example yesterday where truly, because we have trained paramedics that can make a decision en route to the hospital, they can take a patient straight on into the cath lab. And yesterday, one of our own employees' lives was, I think, very, very likely saved by being able to make that decision and deliver her, arriving at work with chest pains, immediately responded to, transported, taken right into the cath lab, and she had a stent by 11 o'clock. So this was in a 4-hour period. So when I see that and I hear that, I'm very touched and proud of the employees we have and the jobs that they do. So I'd like to share with you some of the comparisons that we have and how we look at ourselves compared to others. And then at the end, I do have a recommendation for this board that I'll be bringing forward to the board in the budget process. So Judy, if you could turn on the PowerPoint. I want to first show you, I compared us to the top 7 counties. As you see these come up, you'll see first I looked at all the cost for the administration and county management. And that includes, in our case, it's a county manager. Whoa. In our case, it's a county manager. Geez, that's a tricky little thing. It's a county manager, 2 assistant county managers, and those 2 assistants are also a planning and a social service director. So there you can see how we compare with the other large counties. And frankly, other than Forsyth, out of the 7, we're number 6. In Mecklenburg, they have 3 full-time assistant county managers, in addition to having a planning director and a social service director. As you go down and look at all of those, and it's just how people choose to structure themselves. But it is putting more of an apples-to-apples comparison on what it costs to run our county. Whether people agree with the compensation or not, it's what it costs to run our county compared to county management in other counties. So in county management standpoint, we're 6 out of 7. If I go on now, hit the right button, now it won't work. Okay, if I look at Register of Deeds management, if you look at the counties, Buncombe has a Register of Deeds and a part-time assistant register of deeds. And when you compare that with the other counties, some of them have only a register of deeds, but most do have an assistant. So we rank 4 out of 7 there in terms of cost. On clerk and public relations, probably one of the least understood. People read clerk and think, I'm not sure what they think. We've said for a long time it's a bad title. But in several of the counties, they also do public relations. And in the 5 that do the combination job of clerk and public relations, our cost for that service is fifth of the five. So I think that when you compare, we actually compare very well. In Guilford and Forsyth, they both are just clerks. Not that that's a just job. In library management, like I said, we don't have an assistant library director. So when you compare us to the other counties, Guilford 1 is a city-run library. You'll see that pop up, so there's no county cost on that one. But we rank 6th out of the 6th in terms of management costs for our library system. But like I say, we do that without an assistant manager. If we move on and look at public health management, our health director of the year doesn't have an assistant health director, and it's the only one of the counties that doesn't have that. So when you look at the cost in the top 7, we're 7 of 7 in terms of cost for the management of public health. Human resources. That's a combination, really. Some departments, some of the counties do have assistant human resources directors, and some do not. And when you look at how we compare, we're a 4th out of the 7th. Guilford, that's a combination department there, so we're really 4th out of the 6th. But primarily because we do not, once again, don't have an assistant. Social service, and I hate for Mandy to see this, because in addition to asking her to be the social service director and the assistant county manager, and she does a wonderful job with that. Out of the 7 counties, her compensation is number 6. Election management. Once again, when you look at it, some of the counties do have an assistant elections director, some do not. We are 6th out of 7 there. Cumberland is the other one that does not have an assistant. In finance, over the last number of years, we have combined finance with purchasing and brought together 3 different services, and so we no longer have a purchasing agent or an assistant finance director. And we did have an assistant finance director up till Ms. Clark took the position, and we are 7 out of 7 there. And the last one I'm going to share with you is our tax management. And that includes a tax administrator for us and a tax collector. This is probably the most varied of the options in the state. Some counties have a tax administrator. Some have a tax assessor plus a tax collector. So when we do the comparison, we were 3rd out of the 7. There I would just highly encourage you to look at our results. It's with a tax department that has compassion in how we collect. I think they've done a really good job of working with our citizens too, as we've had this period of stress where we put them on payment plans and been able to work through and enable people to keep their property and actually then make those payments and have financial success. What I will be bringing you, I mean, we've heard the people, we've seen the comments, but what I will be bringing you in the budget is a plan to provide a solid, comparable compensation data. So I'll be asking you to include a third-party review of our county compensation, so that when that review is done, if any adjustments are needed, we'll make those adjustments, and we'll know how we compare across the state, in the region, and locally, both in public and private. Because I think we need to know what the whole picture is before we make a judgment about what's right or wrong with our compensation package. So I'm really just sharing the information with you and want you to know that we will be bringing you that piece of the budget when we come back in May. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about that.
So basically, your chart and your information is that we have combined several positions, and so to compare apples and apples, we have to look at the functions instead of the individual office.
And we look at that all the time. We want to make sure that we're run as lean as we can. And when we made the decision 10 years ago not to have assistants, we made a decision to flatten our organization. And we ask all of our directors to do a lot more. So I would tell you that I think most of them probably spend 55, 60 hours a week being directors. And that's probably on a good week.
Any other questions for Dr. Green?
I'm thrilled about the third party. That's fantastic. So really excited about that.
Great information.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have a report from Gary Jeanette about the Pack Square Park. Gary, come on up. It's good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Always
Thank
a
you,
pleasure.
Commissioners. We really appreciate the opportunity to come before you today and kind of share some wonderful news. As one of our partners in the Pack Square Park project, we really wanted to come today and update you on the Pack Square Park Pavilion that we are hoping to build starting this spring and have open this summer. One of the reasons we want to bring it to you is because this is a significant design change from the original structure that was proposed a couple years ago. We've actually gone from a 4,600 square foot building to a 1,300 square foot building, which really will save a lot of the green space in the northern part of the midsection of the park, which is called Reuter Terrace. And we really, having the park open for one summer, saw the tremendous need for public restrooms and for information services. So one of the wonderful things about this is what we're going to show you today is completely paid for from a grant from the Tourism Development Authority. What we're going to show you fits in that budget perfectly. It provides public restrooms, it provides a visitor center, and it provides a few small offices for the Conservancy so that we will be on site in the park. To date, these new designs have unanimously been approved by the Downtown Commission, the Planning and Zoning Board, and that was required because of the downsizing of the building, City Council, and the donor, which is the Buncombe County TDA. Our design and construction teams are here with me today. Chuck Kreckelberg from Samsel & Associates is going to make a presentation, and Henry Watts from Beverly Grant, our contractor, is here as well. So I'm going to turn it right over to them so they can show you what we're planning on doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Charles Krackelberg, Commissioners. What I'll be showing is a brief PowerPoint presentation and a quick three-dimensional animation that gives you a sense of the pavilion within the context of the park. This is a 3D rendering of the exterior of the pavilion from the park. And the roof, as you can see, is a single slope roof that actually opens up to the park with clerestory windows that allow light into the visitor center. The larger portion, the portion on the center and right, is the visitor center. There is a breezeway, and then there are public restrooms and a rinse-off area associated with Splashville on the left side. This is the floor plan. What you see on the left are 4 unisex toilets separated. If you look at the upper left, you have a toilet, a janitor's closet, and a toilet. On the other side of the hall, you have another toilet, a rinse-off area, and a toilet. The purpose for the unisex toilets, rather than having a men's room and a women's room, is specifically in response to the way that the park and Splashville in particular are used. You have parents changing children into and out of swimsuits, and as you can see on that hall, there is a single shower for rinsing off, and that is a health department requirement associated with Splashville. If you look to the right side, you have the visitor center, which is comprised of a welcome area and 3 office spaces that are dedicated to the Conservancy and their role in the park. There is a single restroom in that portion of the building, and that is for staff. The building is staffed by volunteers at the desk. And if you notice, the visitor center desk is actually aligned with that central hallway that connects the various restrooms. And the purpose of that is so that there is supervision of entering and exiting those toilets. This next image shows the building within the context of the park. As Gary mentioned, the building is much smaller than the original pavilion. It's been reduced down to the core program. Again, on the right side, we have the visitor center and office space for the Conservancy. That gray bar in the middle is actually a continuation of Founders Walk. Founders Walk continues through the building and to the sidewalk on College Street. And then on the left, you have the restrooms and rinse-off area. To the south, as you can see, there is a pinkish purple magenta square. That represents the possibility of a tent being located, a events tent actually being located to the south of the building, or if you look to the right, we have another tent. Those are 20 feet by 20 feet or 30 feet by 30 feet. The importance of this diagram is to show that not only will the building serve these important support functions of the park, but there are also rental opportunities given the fact that we've now reduced the size of the pavilion. This is showing you the original size of the pavilion, so you can see we've dramatically increased the amount of green space around the building, and I'm going to go back. We've surrounded the building not only with trees but also with vegetation, again making it part of the park rather than an urban building directly on the sidewalk. If we could go to the 3D animation, please. The 3D animation is this is just a 1-minute animation. You can see here the park where we have in the background the BB&T building and the Biltmore building. We're approaching the pavilion. As you can see, it is surrounded by trees and vegetation. The single slope roof is a clean, simple roof. Part of the design review process was incorporating into the design a very simple, clean roof. No mechanical equipment, no penetrations of plumbing or mechanical on the roof. Again, all of that is concealed. There will be no mechanical equipment in the park making noise or disrupting park activities. So we've really made an effort to contain those functions within the building. And again, it's a very utilitarian floor plan. The purpose of the building, again, being this is the visitor center portion that we're looking at. We're coming around now to the breezeway where we've got drinking fountains, and again, to the left, we've got the restrooms. The windows, each of the restrooms has translucent glass, so there will be some natural light that goes into the restrooms, but it is not transparent glass. We're looking at the visitor center area where you have double doors and a space, again, the roof opening up to the park, emphasizing the park and views to the park. Again, on the visitor center side, all of that glass surrounding the building is transparent glass. And that's a repeat of the animation. Thank you.
Very good.
Yes.
Well, let's hold on a minute. Let's get questions from the commission first.
Yes.
Any questions here? That's okay. We're gonna. If you have questions, we're glad to do that. Any questions for?
How are you going to heat the building?
The building is heated with a heat pump that is actually located above one of the janitor's closets. So it's actually within the footprint of the building,
Self-contained.
but it's a standard air conditioning, heating, and cooling heat pump unit.
After watching those children have a good time out in the Splashville, I believe you called it, did you think of the possibility of maybe a first aid station up there for busted heads? But I've seen a couple of them take some pretty good licks out there.
And what hours will this facility be open?
Part of the importance of actually physically separating the two halves of the building with and allowing Founders Walk to pass through the building is that the two halves actually have different hours. The restrooms and rinse-off area have the hours of the park. and are actually operated by Parks and Rec. The Visitor Center component has the volunteers at the visitors desk and will be operating normal business hours. Is that correct, Gary?
7 days a week.
7 days.
Good. Great.
Any other questions?
Very
Much needed.
And I take it from your comment about the others, we need to discuss this and approve this today?
That is correct, because it has been significantly reduced in size.
Okay. All right.
And I just have one clarifying question. It might be for Gary, but so I heard that the whole thing, lock, stock, and barrel, is going to be paid for by a grant from the TDA.
TDA, yes.
And this is in addition to the one that this is the second one, right?
This is actually the third.
The third. Okay,
Yes.
but anyway, it's
Yes.
not. It's
No,
new.
this was a new
just
one
for
that-
this,
right.
around this project.
Correct.
Good
Correct.
deal.
Yes,
So,
this was a $500,000 grant that they gave us about a year ago.
Congratulations, this was fantastic.
Thank you.
So you'll be in there in the summer.
We hope we'll be in by July.
Wow.
For shindig.
All right, any other questions? Okay, let's go ahead. You have public comment? Ms. Jones, come up, if you'll come up to the microphone, if you don't mind. Or bring it to her, Curtis, if you don't mind.
I just want to know, I didn't hear him say anything about handicap accessible, and that's my concern. Will it be handicap accessible?
That's a good question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All 4 of the restrooms, including the rinse-off area, are handicap accessible,
Thank you.
as well as the building.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
All right, any other public comment on this subject? Yes, sir, over here.
Yes, sir. My name's Eric Penland. I'm from Arden area. First question is, how much is this going to cost to operate on a year-to-year basis? And the second question I want to know, there is a shower in that area, and there's children in that area going back and forth. Who is going to monitor that area to make sure that no one goes in to molest the children or to do anything else like that? What kind of security is set up for this? And that's my main concern.
All right, thank you, Mr. Penland. I think for this particular session, we're just going to go ahead and answer that now. Go
Sure.
ahead.
As far as security, we have been talking with the Asheville Police Department about having a presence in there. The floor, there has been some concern about kids running through that. The floor is similar to, and Chuck could answer this better than I can, but it is granite, so it's rough. It's a rough surface. It will not get slick. As far as what Chuck had mentioned, when the visitor center is open, there will be people having eyes on the restroom area at all times. The rinse-off area is a very shallow area. If someone stands in that, you're going to see them. You're not. If you looked at the design, it's a very shallow, very simple area. It's really just meant for people to wash off. It's not really a shower. It's more of just a simple rinse-off area. I hope that answers your question.
And I think you asked about the operating expenses, too.
Oh, as far as operating expenses, the visitor side is going to be handled by the Pack Square Conservancy through our operating. The restroom is part of the maintenance program with the city, and they're working on that right now as far as what that will entail. We have a cost for the Conservancy, what it's going to cost us to maintain the building, correct.
But as far as the part that the city would take?
I can't answer that. The Parks and Rec Department would have to answer that from the city. They've been looking at this all along as well.
Okay, let's do one at a time. Mr. English?
My name's Fred English. I'd like to know where all that money is coming from. They spent $26 million over there already on a project that was supposed to cost about $7 or $8 million when it started, and there was not supposed to be any tax money used at all in the process. This gentleman right here and his friends raised the money to put the Veterans Memorial over there, and that was what, about $6 million or $600,000? $600,000 that they privately raised. for people to use as a protest against the county and the United States. Where's all this money going to come from?
All right. Thank you, Mr. English. I want to go ahead and answer that.
We need to.
Actually, just to correct one thing, the park in total has come in under $18 million, not $26 million. And the money for everything that we're talking about here today is coming from the Buncombe County Tourism Development Authority from hotel sales tax. And that's one of the reasons why the visitor center is there, and that's to help generate visitors to Buncombe County and to support the business and revenue around the park and downtown.
Okay. All right. Yes, sir. Mr. Plowey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you again, Gary. Question for you. You mentioned that the Visitors Bureau would be open normal working hours, correct? And the restrooms would be open the hours of the park. If the hours of the park go to, let's say, 11 or 12 o'clock at night because of something in the arena, who is going to provide security for the restrooms when the visitor center is closed?
The park hours actually close at 10 o'clock, and the city will be maintaining that. The city will come along, as they do with all of their other facilities, and lock up the restroom area. So as far as security, we haven't talked with the city exactly how they would do that, but once the visitor center does close, we're hoping that they'll be monitored, and the police department is right across the street.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Front row.
Hi, I may not be too bright on this. My name is Dixie Barkdahl, and I understand it was a $500,000 grant to build this pavilion. Okay, that's a 1,300 square foot building. Why can Habitat for Humanity build one so much cheaper? Where is the rest of the money going?
The money for this is actually going for all of the landscaping, for sidewalks around 3 areas of that building. I can defer it to Chuck if you want to talk a little bit more about what's going into the cost of the building.
There's a rather large covered area, which is that central breezeway. The extent of the work actually extends all the way to the road, so we are installing. There are temporary sidewalks currently. That was to actually close out the first phase of the park work. So the extent of this project goes well beyond the heated square footage, which is the 1,300 square feet. It actually includes all of the trees, relocation of trees, grates for trees, a great deal of sidewalk, the infrastructure for irrigation, lighting. It's much more extensive. And also, none of us have mentioned this, but this is the whole project. Everything from landscape design to landscaping, the architecture, the design, including the construction. All of the costs fall within that, which typically isn't the case when you're looking at the cost per square foot of regular construction.
All right. Yes, sir, Mr. Nesbitt.
A couple of things, Mr. Chairman. Did y'all put bids out for this job? That's one question I had.
We don't do
Go ahead. Yeah, they'll answer that. Go ahead.
Well,
and ask
the other
that
was
question.
just kind of funny. I'm just wondering what's going to happen when all the hippies downtown decide to take a bath in that thing. That's what I'm concerned about, how that's going to play out. But my biggest concern is did you take bids for this job, or did it go just particular to this company? Thank you.
Thank you.
Conservancy already had an agreement with Beverly Grant to build the pavilion, and we just extended that because they had put a tremendous amount of money into the original structure that was going to be built. As far as your comment about people bathing in there, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, Splashville has been open for a complete summer, and I don't think we really had a problem at all. I mean, it was quite enjoyed by the citizens of the area, and I think that, as I said before, this is a very narrow and very shallow area. Unfortunately, we would rather not have it either. but it is a health requirement by the county. Because the state of North Carolina considers Splashville a swimming pool. That's why we have to have it. So we have really cut back on what we're providing, and it really is just a simple, and hopefully it will be monitored very, very closely so that doesn't happen.
Thank you. Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jerry Rice. I've been wondering about safety inside the bathroom itself. It's close to the police station, but you don't know what goes on behind the doors. So I just wonder if there might be something that they could be alarmed in there that could be accessed in case there was something happening inside.
Mr. Young?
Don, with all these questions about security in the bath area and the splash area, if I saw that picture right, the splash area is inside. Wouldn't it make more sense to put that little splash area outside to minimize the security and actually locate that toward the police station so it would be highly visible and remove the possibility of somebody getting inside? So I think a redesign of that bathroom structure might be to have the doors opening to the outside, and then actually have the wash-off area outside, which would solve some of these security questions, because the chances of having somebody taking a bath in the nude outside, I'd rather have it outside where I could see it than inside where I couldn't see it, especially if it's a good-looking woman.
I want to address, why don't y'all just address that issue?
Interestingly, one of the earlier iterations of the building did include highly visible rinse-off area. And the challenge there from a design vantage point and from the neighbors, those business owners around the park, they raised the concern, do we really want, as the public, when we're going to the park to enjoy the park, to see people showering? And there was a great deal of consensus around the idea that the supervision that's needed is more internal to the building. Again, that's why we have organized the building in the way it's been organized. And we moved that shower from the publicly visible location very close to the intersection of College and Market Street, more internal to the building, because many people found it visually offensive, the idea of bathing. The idea of a freestanding shower that you see at the beaches, that was raised as another option. Why couldn't we do something like that? The relationship of stormwater and sewerage, the code requirements would require an actual roofed building, standalone building, if we wanted to do something like that. Again, more unsightly, I believe, than what we've actually arrived at. Again, a little niche off the hallway, very efficient spatially, and again, with much more visibility than a closed-off room.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Can I just stand?
Can you pick her up? I'll just make sure that you're on TV.
It'll be quick. I just
Okay,
want to
go
know
ahead,
about
go ahead.
the green building of it. I've heard heat pump, but I didn't hear any of renewable energy source for the building.
If you'll just repeat the question so that anybody will be able to hear it.
The question was, what are the green sustainable components to the building? The building itself, again, if we start with the roof, it was designed for the future application of a solar panel system. So that being a renewable resource, the use of rain gardens and the collection of rainwater from the roof, a lot of the landscaping features take into account sustainable properties. The mechanical equipment will be highly efficient mechanical equipment, but it will not be solar-powered or wind-powered. Every effort is being made to incorporate those features into the building. But again, as Gary mentioned, the budget itself is very, very limited, given the rather large scope of the project and what we're trying to do within the limited footprint that we have.
All right. Yes, sir.
My name is Bill Lack, live in West Asheville. I've been just listening to this. I did not intend to get up and say anything, but I'm just listening to it. and I've been amazed at a couple of the things. Fred English was wrong. It's only 18 million. That's 10 million over the budget of what it was intended to be. And it was intended to be done without tax money, and it seems to me that these grants and all, they are paid for with taxes. So let's bear in mind, you didn't tell us the truth in the beginning. How can we believe into these figures now?
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
I'm Jeff Turner, and I've been silent on this particular matter, and there's a lot I don't know about it, but I'm kind of late and behind on most issues in life. I was wondering, is it going to produce any kind of income from having that, beneficial, readable, real income? And what is the long-term liability for that? How long is the project good for? What's the maintenance fees going to be to keep it up? I mean, we're in hard times here. Y'all may not be personally, but the rest of America is. And I don't think that if it's not producing an income or anything coming back for the money, then we don't need to be going. To me, that's a frivolous, unthrifty item that we don't need.
All right, thank you.
There's been a front yard out there my whole life. I've born and raised here, as many of you know, and it's always been nice to be downtown. I don't think you got to spend $26 million more to make it any nicer. To me, a lot of us think you're messing it all up. I'll just be honest. You know, there's a lot I'd like to say to you, but this is an honorable panel, honorable room, and I'll forego all that. But those are important issues. Is it going to produce a revenue? Is it just to make people smile? We can't afford those kind of items no longer at this time frame. And to me, that's a real issue because we got people starving. We got people that don't have homes no more. And maybe some more in the next month or two. So I think I still got time here on this matter, but it would be redundant to further out my... So thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to comment on the income-producing aspect to this project?
One of the things is that this will hopefully help tourism in the area. And it will also help provide an information space where any resident can come in and talk and find out, about places to eat downtown, places to shop downtown, about the other museums downtown. It will be staffed by volunteers from the Chamber of Commerce. So we really, really will be checking. We are doing visitor surveys right now to find out how much people are spending downtown, and we will continue to do that. And once we do have volunteers in there, we'll ask them how long they're staying, where they're staying, how much they're spending downtown, et cetera. So, yes, we are hoping that we'll not only generate income, but we'll hopefully generate new jobs as well.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any other? No, sir. You've had your chance. Anybody else want to make a comment? If not, is there a motion?
I move approval. I'll second it. And I have a suggestion,
Okay, yeah.
too.
All right, Commissioner Grant.
I think those safety concerns that have been in questions that are all very helpful and legitimate. My instinct is they're probably being thought through right now. But if we could kind of relay a formal kind of request from our board to the city as they to integrate these safety concerns for children, for elderly, and make sure that issue is relayed over to our friends at the city.
And I'll take that as friendly. Is that all right, Commissioner Peterson? Friendly amendment. The clerk will relay our concerns and relay the expressions of concern by the public comment.
Regarding the safety part.
Around the safety. Thank you. Any other comment? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We will adopt the concept of the park, and thank you, gentlemen, for working on it. Next up, I would like to recognize Sheriff Duncan is here, elected official. Always good to have you, Sheriff. Next up, we have the Adult Care Home Task Force report, and we have our Assistant County Manager, Mandy Stone, here to start us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Almost a year ago, we appeared before this board to share a concern about the impact on our community, both individual safety issues for consumers served in adult care homes as well as the communities that surround adult care homes. In addition, the Sheriff Duncan, myself, and Jerry Vihan wrote a letter to the state that detailed the impact on our infrastructure when citizens from other states are placed in adult care homes in Buncombe County and our taxpayers bear part of that tax burden. As a result of the advocacy of this board, they appointed Commissioners Peterson and Bailey to work with us. The state actually formed a task force through the North Carolina Institute of Medicine, and they recently released their recommendations, and our own Kathy Beatty, one of our supervisors, served on that task force and is here to share those recommendations with us tonight. I want to thank you for hearing our concern about that. I want to thank Sheriff Duncan and Mr. Vihan for joining me and raising that voice across the state. This really is an example where individual community raising concerns is going to have a statewide impact in a positive way.
Ms. Beatty?
Thank you, and I really would like to thank the board for the impetus in asking the legislature to request this task force on co-location of different populations in adult care. It's a task force requested in 2009 by the General Assembly and conducted by the North Carolina Institute of Medicine, with the support of the Division of Mental Health and the Department of Health and Human Services. I really want to thank our director as well, Mandy Stone, for agreeing to let me participate on this task force. It speaks to her great foresight in knowing that Buncombe County, with the highest number of adult care homes of any county in our state, that we would need to be at the table when a multidisciplinary team convened to discuss solutions for our current issues in adult care living. The task force would like to see aging individuals and individuals with disabilities provided with a range of options for living independently in the community with care and support services aimed at recovery and self-sufficiency. But they recognize that this will take time, and in order to meet some of the immediate needs of the residents of the adult care home, the task force considered ways to restructure the current screening, assessment, and care planning process, as well as to ensure that the staff of adult care homes receive training about the populations they serve. Our state has struggled to provide appropriate levels of care, support, and housing to individuals with mental illness. Although most people think of adult care homes as being residences for frail elderly, more than 60% of the residents in our state have a mental illness, intellectual or developmental disability, or an Alzheimer's disease dementia diagnosis. The placement of individuals with mental illnesses, substance abuse problems, intellectual and developmental disabilities, and other disabilities may result in serious behavioral problems, which can pose a threat to the health and safety of other residents as well as staff, especially to those residents who are more frail and elderly. And please, I want to clarify that not everyone who has a diagnosis of a mental illness presents behaviors that pose a risk to either themselves or others. And this is not an issue of old versus young, but rather it's about quality care being given to specific mental health needs whose behaviors may impact the safety of themselves and others, and being able to provide for safety and well-being and comfort for those individuals who may be frail and less physically independent due to aging. Adult care homes currently serve more than 18,000 individuals with disabilities by providing a place to live, assistance with activities of daily living, and medication management. In doing so, adult care homes have become a critical part of the North Carolina's mental health system. Without substantial increases in community alternatives for individuals with disabilities, this population will continue to grow. And this is not to criticize current practice, but rather to point out gaps in service and barriers to achieving the most positive results for our citizens. The recommendations are as follows. Recommendation 3.1 is for a pilot program, and this was a priority recommendation voted for by all of the task force members. It states that the Department of Health and Human Services should develop a pilot which would entail developing a process to evaluate people living in adult care homes to determine whether they can live independently in the community with services and supports, and it would also provide transition counseling to help residents move to more independent living. It would be limited to 1,000 people for the pilot, and those people would continue to receive special assistance as they were in adult care homes. The Study Commission on Aging supports this plan, but realizing the current budget deficits, instead advises that there be a study conducted to respond to the feasibility and the cost of this pilot. Recommendation 3.2 would increase funding for housing for individuals with disabilities. Helping individuals with disabilities better afford housing would mean that the General Assembly would appropriate $10 million in additional recurring funds beginning fiscal year 2011-12, 2012-13 to the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency to be funneled to the Housing Trust Fund, which would target individuals with disabilities and especially explore short-term rehabilitation and stabilization options. Recommendation 3.3 means that local management entities would develop a real-time inventory of community housing options, including therapeutic mental health, substance abuse and developmental disabilities, group homes, adult and family care homes, and supportive living arrangements, and make this inventory available to families. Recommendation 4.1 would be to require standardized pre-admission screening, level of services, and assessment instruments in adult and family care homes and in mental health facilities. This would provide a more uniform system, screening, understanding the consequences of certain disabilities, and improving the current system, which would improve care planning and service access. More complete assessments would also include those behavioral components and provide a better chance for more successful placements. Recommendation 4.2 has as its focus outreach and education for adult and family care home staff. The divisions of mental health, developmental disabilities, and substance abuse services should require local management entities to hold informational forums at least 2 times per year and encourage all supervisors and managers of adult care homes to attend. The focus is on education and an open dialogue to meet the needs of residents. And I'm really proud to say that Buncombe County has actually begun a similar process this past year, providing continuing education units in medication management for psychotropic drugs, and in also having one such forum in which Western Highlands Geriatric Specialty Team, Copestone, the Magistrate's Office, and many adult care home supervisors and administrators attended. Recommendation 4.3 is for a tiered payment, which more closely aligns level of funding to needs of the residents. Payments would be adjusted based on the acuity of needs the residents have, taking into consideration the physical health or mental health disabilities, functional abilities, and behaviors that can be threatening. Recommendation 5.1 is the use of geriatric adult mental health specialty teams to provide training in all adult care homes. And in 2002, the Division of Mental Health created the geriatric specialty teams. There are 20 such teams in the state. And currently, if there is one person in a mental health facility, an adult care home that has a mental health disability diagnosed, the facility is entitled to help from the geriatric specialty team in dealing with those behavioral issues. But this recommendation would mandate that enact legislation to require all adult care home staff to receive specialty team training at least 3 times a year. Recommendation 5.2. The North Carolina General Assembly should require all adult and family care homes, direct care workers, personal care aides, medication aides, and supervisors to be trained and have passed a competency exam for state-approved crisis intervention training by June 2013. Recommendation 5.3 would be a pilot which, in conjunction with the Division of Mental Health, DHSR, would develop a standardized curriculum and competency test for direct care workers as a part of the Federal Personnel and Home Care Aid State Training Program grant, which was received in September 2010. Core training would be strategic in recognizing and interpreting human behavior, external and internal stressors, and strategies for assessing risk. At this point in time, I'd be happy to answer questions from the board.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Beatty?
I think we just have to speak to the fact that this is a situation that was brought to our board, and we have the expertise in Ms. Stone and the folks like you who take this sort of thing by the hand and see that we are on the right path. I think this is not just another example of the work that we do here in Buncombe County, that we're on the cutting edge of these things. It's amazing to me that when you look at the recommendations that are made here, how thought out they are and how they really address the issue that came to the forefront last year with us. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the work you did and the work that the staff that works with you and Ms. Stone did. It's just, as I said, another good example of the great work that's done in our Human Services Department. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'd really like to recognize 2 task force members who are here today to support our recommendations. Bob Tomasulo from the Community Advisory Committee, and Barbara Henshaw, our Regional Ombudsman. Both of them made the trek with me to Raleigh, and we spent a lot of hours with a lot of great minds coming up with these recommendations, and I appreciate your hearing them.
Thank you.
When we lost the major facilities to take care of these folks with these mental problems, we had a serious problem here because we were using deputies to take care of these people, putting them in jail. But thanks to our sheriff and the AB Tech and training people to handle these cases, I can't think of the name of that program now, but I've been to a couple of graduations. But they train our deputies to take care of these folks, and it saved us a lot of money and saved a lot of lives.
Absolutely. The collaboration on getting folks up and going for de-escalation training, as well as last week we held a person-centered thinking seminar, which we invited free all of the adult care home administrators and staff. We had representation from 43 of the adult care homes. Who made an effort to understand that we are people first and diagnoses second or last.
All right. Now, do we need to approve this recommendation, or is this something they've just given to us?
What I would like to ask is that the board send a letter of support for the recommendations. Bear in mind, and let me clarify that I'm not asking for any funding, just your support for the recommendations that I've presented today.
Well, I'll make that recommendation.
Yes.
Okay. By consensus.
In the form of a motion.
Okay, motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Peterson, second by Vice Chair Stanley. Any discussion? And if everybody could silence your phones, I know that there's part of me that wants to hear what your ringtone is, but I think for decorum, let's cut our phones on. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We will send a letter, and thank you for your good work.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we have Western. Western Highlands Medicaid waiver. We have, again, Ms. Stone to come talk to us and introduce the other speakers to this matter.
I just want to quickly provide some background, although I know this board is aware of part of this, is Senator Martin Nesbitt co-chaired the Mental Health Legislative Oversight Committee, and through that work recommended expansion of a 1915 BC waiver, moving North Carolina to a waiver environment related to the delivery of mental health services. There is a lot of information associated with this waiver, and tonight you're going to hear from Arthur Carter, the CEO of Western Highlands, our local management entity, as well as Curtis Venable, who's done an outside objective review of the waiver, both in terms of opportunity and risk. What I would say is I know this board is a board that's very compassionate about mental health issues. We have seen firsthand the pain of our citizens as a result of parts of mental health reform, and this board's invested a significant amount of mental health trust fund money to shore up gaps. So this is a very important topic to our community. There are several consumer groups represented here today, and I assume that Mr. Carter will introduce them. And I know at least one of them, Dr. Pitts, we're going to lose very shortly because he has to teach a class. But Minnie Jones is also here, who, along with myself, represents the county on the LME board.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm Arthur Carter, CEO of Western Highlands. Charlie Shainheit will also be presenting with me. But before I begin our formal presentation, I would like to ask Dr. Pitts to share a few words with you. Dr. Pitts has been actively involved in lots of services in our community, and I'll let him introduce himself and his credentials, and we appreciate his time here. Thank you.
My main credential is I'm retired for 2 years now from UNC Asheville. But I'm involved in, and have been for the last 12 years, in the National Alliance on Mental Illness because we have a family member who developed schizophrenia. He's doing better and better. It takes a long time to come back from some of these assaults on the brain. But treatment does work. Several years ago, I was asked both by my NAMI, my national, local affiliate, but also with the endorsement of the county commissioners, to serve on the board of New Vista's Mount Laurel. It didn't have such a name, and it took about 1.5 years for us to find out about the numerous contracts that composed the old Blue Ridge Authority. What I've learned, both as a family member of someone with mental illness, as a leader of an organization that offers support groups, but also through that business experience of about 2.5 years, is that the funds designated for poor people have the tightest rules. They're extremely rigid. Everybody's concerned about them not cheating you. At the top of the income scale, money's given out rather freely without stigma. Medicaid is one of those, that may be one of the tightest, most stigmatizing kind of sources of funding. The local entity, Western Highlands, and the providers who contract with Western Highlands to provide services for developmental disabilities, addictions, and mental illness are usually very handicapped by the restrictions on how they can use money. You can't use it this way, you can't use it that way, and you're dealing with human beings, some of whom not only have a mental illness but an addiction, indeed a very high proportion. Some of the people have developmental disabilities and an addiction. Human beings are very complex, and the local organization needs to have the freedom to combine funds at the local level to tailor them to the needs of real human beings and real families. They can be financially accountable. I mean, you can audit their books and all that kind of thing. But one way of looking at accountability is not just bottom line, did they cost the county some tax dollars, but rather whether they help people. They must be given the flexibility to use professional judgment in a way that, frankly, goes a bit against the way Medicaid is lined up. And so Arthur Carter and Charlie Shainheit and others will speak more technically about it, but I've seen it both from the family level, because we got our greatest services from the old Blue Ridge. And old Blue Ridge had developmental disabilities, addiction and all, and if you had one kind of problem, they gave you this. If you had 3 problems, they handled it in-house. Okay? We need that. Any business needs that kind of flexibility to really meet the needs of human beings. So I'm for the waiver. I have been in touch with NAMI leaders across the state where this has been in place for several years, for at least 4 or 5 years. And they are enthusiastic about it. I asked them, what could go wrong, and how is it abused? And frankly, the people were confused. Why are you asking that kind of question? Because it works for people at the local level. So without further ado, thank you for your patience and allowing me to contribute to this.
Thank you, Dr. Pitts. Thank you for your good work at NAMI. Mr. Carter?
Charlie and I got to do kind of a tag team back and forth on our PowerPoint presentation. This is Curtis's. How do we do that? Do I do that, or is somebody else doing that?
Let's let Curtis go first.
Let me just go.
Go, Curtis.
Rather than them having to change it, because it might actually benefit them anyway. Mr. Chairman, I'm Curtis Venable. I'm an attorney here in town, and the staff asked me to do a quick overview of what this is about. And so that's the goal. My goal is not to tell you a recommendation or anything. That's for staff. But my job was to try to give you sort of a 35,000 foot, as we've heard. This is very complicated stuff. Let's see if I can get it. First, in terms of the nomenclature, what are we waiving? Well, we're talking about Medicaid. All right, that's what this is all about. It includes state dollars, but in terms of the phraseology, we're talking about Medicaid here. The general rules of Medicaid basically say that Medicaid services, eligibility for those services is supposed to look the same everywhere in North Carolina. As I say there, if you need dental services in Dare County, the requirements are the same as if you walk into a dentist and ask for Medicaid services in Marshall. The process of how those are evaluated should be the same everywhere in North Carolina. The federal government long ago made the decision, though, that we want to allow in certain circumstances flexibility for states so as to allow the waiver of certain Medicaid requirements, thus the phraseology, and to allow these variations for a variety of different reasons so that you could have different kinds of services, different use, different types of providers, just do things differently. For those of you who are familiar with health care in North Carolina and things in our community, access to care is part of a waiver program. North Carolina has a family planning waiver program. For folks who are familiar with a lot of the services delivered to developmentally disabled individuals, those occur generally under a waiver in North Carolina. So we have them already in place in a variety of different manners and different sorts of things in North Carolina. Let's see if I can get it to change. Okay. This particular waiver, and what is being discussed, is a waiver concerning specifically Medicaid and state funds for mental health, developmental disabilities, and substance abuse services, covering all state and Medicaid funds. It's all those funds. It's covering all of those services. It would cover the services rendered inpatient in Mission Hospital, in the ED. It would cover certain psychiatric codes that occur in primary care offices. It would affect services delivered in a clubhouse. It's very comprehensive in its nature. As I'll talk about in just a second, basically the way it works is a lump sum is sent to the local area authority, and the area authority is supposed to manage it. It does not in any way change the entitlement that individuals have that exist under Medicaid to basically have access to the mental health services. To state it another way, basically all of the demands, I'm being somewhat simple about it, but basically all the demands have to be met out of the lump sum. Getting down to a little bit more detail, this is a capitated at-risk waiver. There is some dispute. I mean, some people view this phraseology of an insurance company as a pejorative. I'm trying to be very sincere that at the end of the day, a lump sum amount of money is being provided and health care is supposed to be delivered. If you don't want to use I didn't want to use a phrase like a managed care company because some people view that even more of a pejorative. But, you know, you can see the $70,000 is for the entire Western Highlands area. And that's not to say there's 70,000 folks who have MH, DD, or SA issues. The 70,000 is the number of Medicaid recipients across the Western Highlands region. And the $120 million is still something of a ballpark because the numbers are still being run. But the bottom line is that this is the amount of money to meet the needs, the mental health needs, for all the Medicaid recipients, children, adult, developmentally disabled, substance abuse folks, old, young, residential, respite, et cetera. So that's, you know, sort of the scope of it. I want to make real clear a couple elements from this waiver. One of my concerns that I've expressed over time is that it handcuffs folks in a lot of ways because when I say recipient eligibility, medical necessity criteria are effectively, roughly, already defined by the state of North Carolina. The specific list of services is locked by the state of North Carolina. The qualifications of the providers themselves, you know, you have to have this kind of training, this kind of staff, that's all locked by the state of North Carolina inside this waiver as it's presently structured. The provider rates I talked about being unlocked, sort of, to be, the technical answer is they are completely unlocked, meaning in working out contracts with folks between the management company and the local providers, they can freely negotiate rates. The difficulty, and the reason I say sorta, is because most of the providers that you have in this region, and you know, as a complement to this community, we actually have one of the most robust, best-run sets of mental health providers, substance abuse, developmental disabilities providers in all of North Carolina. We're talking about efficiently run, intelligently run, and they have very little margin. So that in terms of the notion of saying we're going to back money out of rates is a little unrealistic. I'm not saying anybody's discussing it, but that's why I'm saying there's not a lot of flexibility. So what's really allowable is how utilization management, how do we decide how much services go and for how long? One can cruelly say, well, that's the measure of how you say no. It's not really just that. It's about ensuring that the services are needed for that particular individual for that particular length of time to the best outcomes. And that's where the real flexibility is permitted here in terms of getting things done. Let's see. In terms of I wanted to address one of the questions that I know some of you have raised is what kind of tasks can be privatized. State law basically allows area authorities to privatize almost anything. I mean, you effectively could have a hollowed-out shell. Actually, Mecklenburg effectively does that to a large extent. I'm not necessarily recommending that, but I did want to answer your question. But all aspects of the thing can be subcontracted out to address that. That's not to say that you should or shouldn't, but it is completely permitted as an option in terms of delivering. In terms of the point, well, for the state of North Carolina, it's to cap a cost. You know, they have been successful in controlling cost in the one area, the 8 or 9 counties that are currently in what's called the Piedmont Area Authority region. That's where this waiver exists today. This is not a statewide waiver. This is being rolled out. It's been rolled out in the Piedmont area for, I think, 3 or 4 years, as you heard. The expansion was for the Western Highlands and Mecklenburg. As I understand, Mecklenburg has put theirs on hold for their local issues. And then there is the one being discussed in this region. So the real goal is for the state of North Carolina is just to hand off a lump sum. That lump sum cannot increase. Therefore, they have contained costs there. At the local level, it's hopefully to generate some level of savings, which in turn can be used to fund another set of services. But let's be real clear and very precise. Even those add-on services are fixed within the waiver concept itself. So I hope I have given you a little bit of an overview and understanding of what it is that folks want to talk about. If I can answer any questions, I can do them now. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here to deliver Ms. Jones home, so I know I'm not going anywhere time soon. So feel free to ask me any questions now or as it rolls along. Okay. Thank you, folks.
Any questions, Mr. Venable?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir. Mr. Carter.
Thank you. We'll try this again. For those of you who don't know, I'm Arthur Carter. I'm the CEO of Western Highlands Network. And this is Charlie. Why don't you stand on this side, Charlie? That way we can go back and forth. The first slide is really the critical point for me to make today. We'll give you some more information. We can talk in more detail. Key for me is that we want to return local control and oversight and accountability and stability to this area. 4 years ago, the state decided to take Medicaid away from the local management entities and give it to a private company, Value Options, based out of Virginia, to manage our system. We've lost a fortune through that process. It cost our state $350 million to $400 million, depending on how one calculates that, based on the authorizations around community support debacle that occurred a few years ago. They've paid Value Options in this contract a little over double what the LMEs were being paid for to do this in the past. This is our opportunity to return back to our community our ability to authorize, facilitate, plan, and coordinate services for our consumers. It's awful easy to say, let somebody in Raleigh do that, let somebody in Virginia do that, et cetera. We want to be accountable for what goes on in our community, and this is the only way that I know for us to do that. We're accountable for delivering the services for the state-funded consumers. We're not accountable and responsible for any of the services that are provided to the Medicaid population in our community, which is a substantial number of people. 70,000 people throughout our area are receiving Medicaid benefits that need to be coordinated and planned for. We don't have access to their crisis plans. We don't have access to knowing what their needs are. They show up in the emergency room. They show up in our crisis systems, and we don't have the information that we need. If we were managing this system, we would have all that information. We'd be better able to plan for and coordinate and deal with services. The waiver's primary goals, already been said, increase consumer access. We want to improve the quality of care and demonstrate cost effectiveness. The savings in a waiver don't come from being able to manage the dollars. There's no magic in that. The savings is in using the funds correctly for the right services to the right consumers. Under our current model, a fee-for-service process, a provider develops the service, a consumer goes to them, and they continue to bill for that service and try to hold on to that particular consumer. Under a managed system, we're responsible for making sure that the person is getting the service they need, the right amount of that service, and only the right amount of service, not to stay there forever if they don't need to be there forever. Now, if they need to be there for a longer period of time and they need ongoing care and support, then fine. But that's what we get to manage. We get to decide the dollars are used in a more appropriate kind of way. Currently, Value Options doesn't do that. They authorize the service, and it gets paid for by the state, and the state's on the hook for paying the Medicaid bill. That's not a good outcome, and that's not a good plan. Our goal is to demonstrate cost effectiveness. We've done that very well with our state-funded services. We've been able to manage the dollars we receive in a very effective manner. We've worked with our providers, bringing them to the table, trying to find out how's the best way to meet our needs and to coordinate ongoing care.
Benefits for consumers. We have some increased flexibility to create and modify services. If we generate some savings, then we have an opportunity to petition CMS and develop new kinds of services. The other flexibility that we have is as Curtis said, some of the services are indeed fixed. What has been missing from the system is oversight and making sure that providers are delivering best practice, that the needs that are identified in the assessment are actually met in the service plan and those kinds of things. That oversight has been pretty much missing from the system currently, which is part of what generated some of the overspending in the community support program. So we hope, to generate some savings by just being a good bit more rigorous in terms of reviewing service plans, treatment plans, et cetera. Also, as Arthur mentioned, we'll have local opportunity to look over folks' crisis plans when they get into an emergency situation and look at their service plans locally as well. The authorization of services will be local, not hundreds of miles away, so that if a provider has a question or there's a concern about what gets authorized and what doesn't get authorized, there's somebody here local that they can talk to directly, and we know all of our providers, so they're used to talking with us. We place a high priority on integration with primary health care and behavioral health. That's something that Western Highlands has been a leadership role across the state in doing that kind of integration, and being able to do that well will be critical to the success of the waiver. And the options for provider selection and self-determination. We will be able, we probably won't do a whole lot to change the provider network the first year, but based on provider performance in subsequent years, we will award contracts to providers that are being effective and delivering best practice, and we'll choose for providers that are not demonstrating a good performance, we may choose not to contract with them. Provider benefits, again, local authorization of claims and authorizations. If there's a question or a problem, there'll be somebody locally that they can meet face-to-face with and resolve their problem, and not some organization hundreds of miles away. Again, we can develop resources for specialized services. We'll have some opportunities to increase rates for services that we want to where they're underserved. For instance, physician fees are basically providers take a loss on those, so we might want to look at if we've got some savings that we would increase the rates for some services where we want to bring more psychiatrists into the system, for instance, and better reimburse them. We also have a lot of responsibility to seeing that quality of care is integrated into the system, and so we can require providers to deliver best practice and those kinds of things, and not award contracts to providers that aren't performing well. And also, we'll have providers will have already. We are in the development of our benefit plans for consumers. Providers are having input into that to make sure that we're not doing something draconian that's going to cause them to lose their shirt and not be able to be financially viable.
One of the areas that's gotten the most attention has been the finances. What are the fiscal implications of this process, and where's all the money, and how's it going to be used, and so forth? It's one of the reasons we wanted Dr. Pitts to talk earlier, so that people know that this really relates to consumers, relates to services, relates to people. It's not just about money. Money's a portion of this, and it's a significant factor here. But we really do want you to keep in mind that what we're trying to do is address the needs of our consumers and try to do it in a local venue. The funding for these services, or for this waiver, is based on what's referred to as a PMPM, a per member per month basis. When we talk about a cap, the cap is on that per member per month rate that we'll negotiate with the state. There's a process of negotiation. We've already received information about planning process to negotiate that rate based on a historical utilization of services and expenses for this population in the past 3 years. That rate, that amount of money that we receive on a monthly basis for each member in the group. So if there are 70,000 people, then whatever that per member per month rate is times 70,000 people is what we receive for that month. Next month, if there are 60,000 people that are Medicaid eligible, because people go on and off of Medicaid, then we would receive $60,000 times the per member per month. The next month, if there are 85,000, then we receive that PM times the number of people that are needing the service. So the cap is on the rate that we have per member per month, not on the total dollars that are available to Western Highlands as we manage this. So that's one of the distinctions we need to keep in mind, that as more people come into the need, we'll be able to have additional funds to pay for them. If there are less people that need the service, then we need less money to pay for those. And that seems appropriate, rather than government just saying, here's a whole bunch of money, go out and spend it. That's really not a good plan, in my opinion. I think a bit more conservatively than that. Let's spend money in a reasonable, planful kind of process. The state will also provide an additional risk pool. They're going to provide 2% over whatever the PM rate is. So whatever rate we negotiate that says, okay, this is how much we get per member per month, they're going to add 2% to that and give that to us every month as an additional risk pool so that we can build up a risk pool to handle any overages that might occur in terms of overutilization of some of these services. Some of these consumers might need a higher level of care one month than they needed the next month, and we need to be able to pay for that. And that risk pool is there to help deal with that. That's up until we reach 15% of the total Medicaid funds that would be available in the contract, that they'd stop providing that risk pool. We can add to that risk pool ourselves anytime we would like. We'll also receive a separate administration amount, and the LME really need to function much more like a business as we move through this process. The projected, and this is based on 2010 data, and we know that this data is lower than what we're currently anticipating. We project, based on the data, that there will be about $93 million that we receive from Medicaid capitation. That's to pay for services. We receive about $27 million in state and federal funds currently for our services that we're currently delivering. We would still continue to receive those funds. That would make for a total of $120 million. Plus, we receive about $11,400,000 to operate the LME. We receive about $6 million now. And we receive an additional $1,860,000 to help build this Medicaid risk reserve up until we reach 15% of that $93 million. The 2% Medicaid risk reserve is based off of the Medicaid funds, not off of the state and federal funds. So that's why that number there, if you're looking for how did we do the math. I think I may have already covered part of this, but. Okay. The LME administration, I'll just add, the LME administration is based on roughly about a 9.5% rate that they figure of the total amount of the dollars. That's how we came up with that $11 million figure.
The risk reserve account is something that we can't touch. It's basically set up as a separate bank account. As funds are added to that each year, it'll build up to 15%, and then the state will stop contributing to it. And we can't touch that unless we have a specific okay by the DMA, so we'd have to have a good reason for doing that. We can make contributions beyond the 2% if we wish, if we have funds to spend out of LME's savings. So we can add to it if we want, and the board can designate a separate fund if they want to start building one. And if we decide to terminate the contract for whatever reason, we get to keep whatever funds are left in the risk reserve.
And any interest. Our staff will be involved in ongoing monitoring of all aspects of this waiver. We're going to be looked at under a microscope. I mean, the state's going to be looking at us, our county boards, you all are going to be looking at us. What are you doing? How is this working out? Western Highlands Board is going to be looking at us. We have a Consumer and Family Advisory Council. They're going to be looking at how this is working. Is it benefiting consumers? Are we getting the services that we need on an ongoing basis? It'll be important for us to have lots of data and lots of information to continue to show that this is an effective model and an effective way to deliver and manage these services. We're going to have weekly interdepartmental team meetings really to kind of focus on how is this working, where are we at. We want to stay on top of this. One of the few LMEs in the state that has a process currently in place for our state funds where every week we look at all of the dollars that we've spent on all of the services for consumers, and we break that down by each of the service categories. We have a trend line data that we've been able to develop over the course of the last 2 years to show what was it like 6 months ago, what was it like 12 months ago, 14 months ago in terms of comparison for that service. Is it going up? Is it going down? How many people are in those services? Which providers are delivering those services? I mean, a tremendous amount of data that we monitor on an ongoing basis to make sure we don't overspend. The one thing that we've been doing since the LME was formed was managing a capped amount of dollars since the beginning. The LME receives a fixed amount of money for state-funded services to meet the needs of all the people who want Medicaid eligible within our catchment area. Not an extra nickel or an extra dime. If we go over or under, we have to manage within that budget. And so we're very good at doing that. And that's kind of the field that we're in. A little differently than a company like Value Options that's a for-profit business. You know, they're looking, where's the profit margin on there? There is no profit margin in what it is that we're doing. We meet our operational expenses. We provide the services. If we need to take money from our operations, which Western Highlands has done on occasions to help fund and support services, we do that. We're looking at developing more dashboard or real-time data information systems on a day-to-day, hourly basis to be able to provide this information in a timely way. Again, I said we'll be providing these monthly reports, fiscal as well as data on consumer outcomes. And we're required to provide program fiscal reports to the state on an ongoing basis. We are asking for your support tonight. There is a requirement that we get the support of all 8 of the county boards and commissions in our catchment area to vote to support this waiver. Not asking you for any money. We're asking you to support our moving forward and doing this. The contract that we will have with the state in reference to this waiver provides for a 30-day termination clause. You heard earlier, if we terminate this contract, we get to keep whatever monies we've accrued up until that particular point in time. We believe that there are risks associated with any activity. There are risks associated with not serving people. There are risks associated with serving people. I believe that this managed care model of approach for us to be involved is a reasonable, educated, and intelligent risk for us to take at this point in time. I encourage you to vote favorably for the resolution, and I'll turn it back to Mandy.
Mandy, what are the, other than risk of not serving people, what risks are there if you use this model?
The risk for counties really exists in North Carolina statute, which says that if an area authority dissolves, the counties own the liability. And the law says that that happens on a prorated basis. So if you look at the Western Highlands catchment area, Buncombe's larger than the other 7 counties combined. So we carry a larger portion of that risk. I think that's why, from a staff perspective, a lot of our due diligence is focused on. I want to talk a few minutes about that. We've had the county internal auditor and our human service support team manager do an in-depth analysis of the risk. One of the recommendations that you'll see in the resolution, the draft resolution, is that the Western Highlands actually appoint a committee of financial experts from each of the 8 counties to oversee the financial component of this, separate than the role the board already has. And Arthur has agreed that that's a good idea. For us, that would be Tim Floor, our internal auditor. So that is the risk. I would agree with Arthur that if you look at Medicaid, both on a national and a state level, it's going to be waiver driven. There's very little doubt about that. I think what sometimes gets glossed over around this waiver is Medicaid's an entitlement. And to manage in a capitated environment, an entitlement presents a different challenge than some other types of waivers. I think consumer groups, and there are others here besides NAMI, which Dr. Pitt represents, CFAC's here, support moving forward with this waiver for our community. Staff's recommendation is that there are risks associated with it. We tried to outline in the resolution that we feel like we've done specific due diligence around those risks in addition to Mr. Venable's outside review, in addition to the internal auditor's review, in addition to the hundreds of hours we've spent as a staff coming to understand it and sitting through board meetings trying to understand what the potential risk and gains for our community would be. We also asked Western Highlands about 21 specific questions about how it would positively impact unique populations in our community, one of those being the wait time for individuals who need inpatient care, which is averaging about 36 hours in the emergency department. So we've asked those specific questions, and Western Highlands has responded to those. You know, when we move beyond the due diligence piece, what we would want to see attached to any resolution is, one, the Western Highlands Board is unique around any LME boards in the state because 8 county managers sit on it. We believe that that makeup of the board is critical in moving forward with a waiver because county managers bring a unique ability to manage to manage both systems and dollars at those levels. We also are concerned. One of the things that the internal auditor raised is that Western Highlands has not completed their IT upgrade plan that was a part of their Mercer review, and we feel like that IT plan is essential to their having the efficiencies that will realize savings. We are very concerned that savings don't come from reduced services, so we want to see them report out on a regular basis to us that there's been service growth, not decrease in service. We want to hear specifically. One of the arguments Western Highlands makes, and it's well-founded, is that if I get denied a service, my appeal will now be decided at a local level. That's a good thing, but we want to make sure what are the outcomes of those appeals. Do we see more appeals than we see in the current environment? Or do we see more services authorized or appeals overturned than we see with value options? So we think those are important pieces to know. We also, and I mentioned this, we want to see very specific financial reports for them, particularly in the initial phases. And we believe that Western Highlands, and Arthur agrees with this, should have to meet the entire risk pool set aside of $15 million before they spend any flex dollars, so that there's not financial risk that counties then will bear if there's overutilization at some point. We also, this board has invested heavily in an integrated care model with our FQHC, the Minnie Jones Health Clinic. We think it's essential that this waiver support and be a full partner to that effort, and that they continue to cooperate and work in a cooperative way with the Minnie Jones Health Clinic. Those are the primary areas that we've outlined as contingencies to approval. I do believe in the assessment by our internal auditor supports that we do have enough layers of oversight and review in place that we will not allow the county to get into any kind of financial difficulty. I will tell you, of the 8 counties, and Arthur should correct me if I'm wrong, I believe 3 have actually approved moving forward, and 5 including us, have not yet taken final action.
What is the time frame,
Mandy? Effective what date?
It will be actually his effective date for implementation is January 1 of next year, but he is very concerned about the message that we're sending to the state as an LME, in that we were chosen for this after a pretty exhaustive process. If we delay too long, the Western Highlands Board has asked for the 8 counties to weigh in by the middle of March, so that they know where the counties sit prior to their April board meeting. So that's the probably timeline crunch. And I know y'all have heard from some citizens and some consumers. I think when something is this significant, both from a financial and a service aspect, it's always good to allow additional opportunity for questions or concerns. And, I think if you do delay, I would encourage citizens to look at this resolution and to look at the PowerPoints and to call Arthur or I with individual questions as well as board members. I do feel very good about the due diligence of staff in evaluating risk, and can tell you I think that I know that we will have in place the necessary protections if the waiver moves forward to ensure there's not risk to Buncombe County taxpayers. And I would note that the final statement on this resolution that I would propose you look at if you move forward says that by supporting this action, Buncombe County assumes no additional financial obligation to Western Highlands Area Authority other than to maintain what it's required to under current statute, which is our maintenance effort. So we think that's an important part of the resolution that we acknowledge up front. There are no additional local dollars involved in the support of this.
Did I not hear you say that there was a 30-day cancellation?
But two things can happen.
That'd be awfully hard to do, though.
Western Highlands can give notice to the state to actually move out of a waiver environment with 30 days notice. And Buncombe actually has the population that would allow Buncombe to give notice to the Western Highlands if the rest of the LME decided to move forward with a waiver to look at a different structure.
Okay, so is your recommendation that we wait until our 2 weeks from today to take it up for vote and let there be additional examination of?
It is. As I've heard questions from board members and from the public, it's apparent it's a very complex issue. The rest of us have had the benefit of studying it for a couple of years. I think the delay to your next meeting to vote allows you the additional opportunity to either ask questions of myself or Western Highlands, and also the opportunity for the public to study the proposed resolution and to bring forward any questions as well. And they may have questions that are more appropriately addressed to one of the consumer groups. One of the things we could do is post on our website who all those contacts are, including CFAC, so individuals could ask their questions where they feel more comfortable. Okay. I think this is a really big deal.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Mm-hmm. Well, personally, that's the way I would like for us to proceed. I sat with Curtis for a couple of hours and had a great explanation, and have met with Mandy and other members of her team, but I've learned a great deal today, and it's been a wonderful presentation. But there's some thought that I'd like to give to it, and there's some questions that I think I would like to raise with Mandy and Curtis and Arthur, and so my recommendation is that we postpone this vote until our next meeting, which is March 1.
All right. I don't think we need to vote. Is there a consensus or any other comments?
That's what
well, I wouldn't mind asking a few questions now while it's in my mind, and then I'm just kind of thinking procedurally, because I think that's a prudent way to go. If folks perhaps are here tonight that have questions tonight, I would be open to hearing those, so we can kind of get, I guess what I don't want to do, we'll get our questions answered, but I don't think the public to come and have a question and then we delay it again next week. So if we can kind of have some of that interaction now.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we plan? Excuse me. Why don't we plan on getting any questions tonight, delaying the vote as Commissioner Peterson suggested, and then at the next meeting take more questions if people have them. Because it's a lot to digest. I mean, I'm like Commissioner Peterson and probably all the rest of them. I've had explanation, but there's a lot in here, and this is a big deal. This is folks that can't stick up for themselves, so we want to make sure we do the right thing here.
And we could post on the website, in addition to the contact information, both our internal auditor's review, the Q&A that I sent to Western Highlands in their response to those questions, all the PowerPoints presented tonight, as well as the proposed resolution. So citizens would have all that information and bringing forward questions.
All right.
That sounds good.
Everybody for doing that?
Can I launch with my questions, though?
Commissioner Jennings, go ahead.
I know they're not to me.
Well, they might. I don't know who they are to. There's just a few. So question number one, like we've been talking about the catchment area that had 70,000, Medicaid is it Medicaid eligible recipients? Is that how it's
Medicaid eligible.
Eligible. So my question is, what is the average Medicaid utilization? Because clearly 70,000 people are not using it, are they? I mean, they're eligible, so because that's really the number of users y'all have got to kind of think through, and there's actually a logic to that question, but do y'all have a sense of what percentage utilize these Medicaid services that?
I don't know exactly what the percent of folks, I mean, it's way smaller than the 70,000. I can't rattle off
Okay.
what the...
That would be really important for me to know, to kind of have, because part of, I mean, if it's like 10% or 20%, I mean, it's a big number.
There are about 32,000 enrolled in Buncombe, and we probably have the highest penetration rate of the other counties. So one of the things we could post is both what the penetration rate is, and what that means is what percentage of the eligibles are actually enrolled. I can
Okay,
post
yeah,
that for
that'd be
all
great.
8 counties on the website as well.
Commissioner Jones, in partial, it's different from what you're talking, but in terms of the way the calculation runs, what they do, what Medicaid does, and it is subject to a little bit of negotiation, is they basically go back and pull the billing data for specific, effectively, billing codes that
Right.
run to all of this against the population in the region. And don't call it an average, it's more complex than building an average. But basically,
Right.
the historic data they take is basic past utilization across this area and mush it up a bit. And that's how they end up with the PMPM, the per person per month
Okay.
basis that they'll fund them with. All right.
And so in terms of the dollars, there's a PMPM chunk of change, then there's the 2% risk pool chunk of change, and then there's the operations fund, and that's the money that we're talking about right now. So, and the operations is the 9.5 and the 11.7 million. Okay, and so the other question I have is, so currently, because I think you made a really good case for y'all are kind of in this business with the state funds now. So I'd just be curious to, like, what does this ramp up look like in terms of, like, this will be triple the number of people that you serve? Is it 10 times? I mean, just in terms of for the increase of the services that we're talking about.
If you don't quote me, I would say roughly it'll triple it.
Okay. And I guess that's part of why y'all, in addition to kind of the image issue with the state to kind of know that we're on board, I'm assuming that part of the timing issue is in order to kind of have a good ramp up, and that so when January 1st comes, y'all are really ready to go. And so if you wanted to kind of, I heard a little bit about the IT system. If you wanted to elaborate about how you were planning that ramp up to triple your services, that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. We anticipate having to hire 50 or 60 people altogether across the 8 counties in various categories. We also have to do some ramping up of our IT system. We've begun to do that now, but we kind of need to get all these votes done before the board will release funds to do all this moving forward. So that's why we're sort of anxious to get started.
Right.
It'll be a project to get it all done by January. We're confident that we can do that, but we're anxious to get started. So, there's a good bit of ramp up, and we've got a detailed implementation plan that's pages and pages about how we're going to do this.
Super.
So, yeah.
And my final question kind of has, and maybe other people can weigh in addition and to y'all, to you. So we kind of started the presentation because of Dr. Pitt's obligation. And he really kind of framed it around, this is a people, predicament, and this is about delivering the, good service to a very fragile group of folks. So, and we talked a lot, and I think rightly so, we need more information about kind of the financial risk of terminating a waiver, and that was good. And then I needed to feel good about that. I feel good about the checks and resolutions at this point. But could you or anybody speak to if there are any human, what would be the human effect for if termination of the waiver, say we launch and then it's not the right thing for our community, how will that impact the consumer, if at all, if we have to shift back?
Well, shifting back, If we chose not to do it, the state would have a couple of options. One is they could rehire somebody, Value Options or somebody like them, or they could have another LME take over this area, would probably be their two main options that I can think of off the top of my head. They would continue the authorizations and then would have to ramp up another system of supervising and making sure the authorizations are legitimate and all those kinds of things.
Thank you.
So I would, it shouldn't happen with all the oversight that there would be this surprise, huge overrun of the budget. There are lots of checks and balances to make sure that we weren't doing that, and that we'll be monitoring the trends very carefully to see that that doesn't happen.
Understood. Anybody else want to give their
Yeah, I've got one question.
Okay.
All right.
Slight, Commissioner Jones, we've had one waiver around mental health in the late 80s, early 90s that was terminated. We didn't decide to do it. The state and the feds decided they'd end it. And it was wound down. I believe Ms. Shinhite's right. It seems highly unlikely there'd be a snap decision if, for whatever reason, it would be unwound and pieces would go where they appropriately did go. And there are still some folks around at Western Highlands that were around when that previous waiver was unwound. So it's manageable. Okay.
I've got one. This is probably for Walter. Could you tell there are 7 conditions here? Do you feel good you can meet them? I think you've talked about the IT condition. Are the other ones that are in this resolution something that y'all can meet and meet in a timely manner?
Yes. I mean, we've Andy shared the resolution with us. We've looked over. We're perfectly comfortable with those expectations and see those as reasonable and things that we would want to be doing on an ongoing basis anyway. So I have no problem with any of the language that's in the current resolution whatsoever.
And you can meet them. You feel good that
Oh
this
yes, I mean
is all doable.
Yeah, we believe that we can. I mean, accomplish what we need to do. One of the requirements of the waiver is that there's an outside entity that the state is contracted with, the Mercer Group, who will come back here and meet with us once we say we think we're ready. We've kind of slated that for July or August of this next year for them to come back and review everything, and they'll say, oh, yeah, we think you're ready to go. No, we don't think you're ready to go yet. You're going to have to delay your implementation because you don't have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. Then they'll be likely back in September or October when we'll have to be able to demonstrate that we can do every function that's required in terms of all the reporting up to the state, receiving the documentation, testing the software, making sure it all works before we would implement on January the 1st. So there'd be no implementation actually until the state approved, yes, you can do all the things that you can do in terms of the reporting, the information, the tracking, and that type of thing. So that's all kind of built into the ongoing process.
All right, sir.
Because the other thing in terms of timing, one of the other issues that we had was, I think the comment was made about Mecklenburg was one of the other LMEs, and they've had change in management staff there at the LME and are kind of on a hold in terms of what's going to happen in Mecklenburg. We're not sure what's going to happen there. We're hoping that we'll get some answers fairly soon, but East Carolina Behavioral Health, the largest geographically LME in the state out on the East Coast, would be the third LME to do this. And they've already informed the state that if they are given the opportunity to move forward, they could be ready to do the waiver by October of this year, that they're ready to go. They think that they're ready to be implemented, and they don't want to be held up. And that's one of the concerns, that we don't want to delay this too long because we're already delayed it 6 months. We were supposed to do this in July. We're now doing it in January. The further we get behind, the less likely it is we'll be, because we can't spend any money on any staff functions or activities until we get this process done. So we're kind of on hold.
So if you triple the number, does that take us back to the I guess mid-90s when we had the Highland Hospitals and Appalachian Halls and all those kind of people, and people were being served at much better than they have been in the last?
Well, the number is still the same. It's who's managing them. I mean, so there won't be any more people here receiving services. It's just that we'd be managing those services rather than they. But we would be creating another hospital facility. I mean that.
No, I understand that. Yeah. But I thought you would be serving more people. Or
Well,
have
the
the
LME
opportunity
would be
to serve
serving
more?
these people. With these 70,000 people that are potentially out there that are Medicaid eligible
Okay.
are currently in existence now. We would just be
I understand.
managing their care.
All right. Now, we're going to vote. We're not going to vote on this tonight. What's the feel of the board? Since we have a lot of people here, a lot of public comment. We want to take public comment now. I want to defer that to our next meeting when we're going to, before we vote.
If people have waited this long to weigh in on this issue, I mean, I'd kind of hate to, I wouldn't mind taking a break after this before we have the other public comment, but I would hate to ask them to come back. I mean, they're welcome to come back again if they need to weigh in, but, I mean, people have been here for 2 hours and.
All right. Very good. And we'll take public comment on this issue of the public, the Medicaid waiver. Mr. English.
I reckon they're going to let me talk. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you're
All right. Fred, you mind waiting until Ms. Jones? Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. For the people who don't know me, I am the Minnie Jones. And everybody's been up here talking about the waiver and talking about money. But I'm here to talk about people, not money. What I need to know is how this waiver is going to help some of the people that Dr. is talking about there. I want to know how many more people that we can see. Just a lot of things that I think that the public need to have some say in, because they have families with problems who's not being served. I'm speaking for all 8 counties, but mainly for Buncombe, because that's where y'all sent me to do to represent us. But I'm talking about all of us. We need to understand exactly how this money can help people. I works with these kind of people every day. I have some in my family who is not getting any service at this point as I speak, for one reason or another. And there are a lot of people out here like that. Somebody needs to take a look at this, a deep, deep look, with some figures that can't be broken. Because we can do a lot of talk. And I've learned if you don't have things in writing and notarized, you ain't doing nothing. So I would like for y'all, and thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for what you're going to do. But I truly want this to be, show me where I can do better to help my fellow man. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you,
Mr.
Minnie.
Mr. English?
My name's Fred English. Medicare and Medicaid, it's the most frauded thing in the federal government is Medicare. There's more money stolen from Medicare and Medicaid than there is from the military in defense contracts. Anybody that gets Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, anything like that, if they're physically able and they don't pay any premium on any policy like Medicare, you know, your $96, whatever they get, they should be out in the street working, picking up papers, washing windows over at the courthouse at the minimum wage of what they draw. If they get $200, they should work $200 out if they're physically able. Now, I'm not talking about somebody that's not able to do it. We are getting ripped by Medicaid. They go around, if you got food stamps, you can get a cell phone with whatever you call it, you know, text messaging. Why does somebody on Medicaid need a cell phone? That's all I got to say about it.
Okay, thank you. And that's good. Let's focus on this program so that we can, so Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I don't think Mandy or any of the rest would disagree. I've attended these on a monthly basis since 1997, 98. And my concern is that Buncombe County, Gibby Harris got a great award today. Buncombe County has done so many things in the right way to help these kind of people. in the mental health world and DD and substance abuse. And we have launched out a big campaign to do that here in Buncombe County. We've spent a lot of money, a lot more than just our $600,000 that's donated on what we're contending on our waiver today. But it's not just about the waiver. I want to broaden your horizon. Here is the LME. Here is the rest of the people with mental illness in Buncombe County. When you look at the population in the 7 counties, 8 counties, they're much bigger. The concern is not with me in Buncombe County. My concern is outside of Buncombe County, even though we're talking about Buncombe County tonight. The greatest need is out in the outlying counties. And if we get the waiver, the focus is going to be, or should be, out there in the counties that don't have what we have here in Buncombe. But at the same time, Buncombe has built its form around what we're talking about as being a single county waiver. And if we wanted to, we could branch off with no problem and do it. I don't have a doubt in my mind that we don't have that capability. But my concern is that Mission Hospital has come out and said that they are $3 million in the red. But just before that, they bought a hospital out in Transylvania County. Now, how does that play into this picture? The hospital is buying up every doctor's office that they can in Buncombe County and anywhere else they can get it. Hospitals are buying up. This is going to affect the Medicaid world, because a lot of these mental health patients are going to the hospital, going to the emergency room, going to private doctors. And when I say this circle is not the LME, but this one is, we're only serving a small portion of what you're hearing today in the mental health ring. So this waiver is not going to cover all the people that we're talking about. They're going to be funneled in 3 or 4 different other ways. So my concern is Buncombe County. I'm not worried about Buncombe County not having the capacity to meet the need. But I am concerned whether this waiver or not is going to meet the need of the other 7 counties, and how I think personally the other county manager that served on this board has done a fantastic job, and I'll say it very bluntly, for the state not to rape us in our counties on the money. The county managers and the assistant county managers have made sure on that board that we have been as protected as we can and not be taken by the state like they usually do. So my concern is, let's look at the greater good for the greater of the people. Well, that is the outlying counties is going to see this waiver in a much better way, and they need to. The kids in school, I serve a lot of them in 7 counties. And let me tell you, the school's money is going down. Medicaid is going down in the schools. And the need in the schools is getting greater. And this waiver, I don't see it affecting the schools like we're talking about in the bigger scheme of this, because they're only serving the mental health needs in a few of these schools with providers. They're not serving developmental disabilities and the substance abuse, and substance abuse is one of the biggest areas of need in Buncombe County. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And let's go ahead and let's put a 3-minute on, because we're going to, you can come, we can get more comments. So you're next.
My name is David King. I live in the Candler area. First of all, I want to thank you for postponing this tonight to study it further. That's what I'd like to see from the board, is study. This may be a great thing to do. I don't know, and I haven't studied it. We know it's an entitlement. There's a need for this. On the other hand, I'm hearing things like run it like a business, grow the rolls and ramp up. And I have to ask, when is it ever a good thing to expand an entitlement? To what Mr. English was saying, he's feeling the frustration of all of us taxpayers. If you do this waiver, which, like I say, may be the right thing. I do not know. I'm not the one studying it. And if it fails, you're going to come back to us looking for dollars. So if this is a business, and I keep hearing about serving the customer, what about the stockholder, which happens to be the taxpayer? If it fails, we lose our investment, and then we also have to pick up the tab, kind of like General Motors. there's many more things. I know that taxpayers in this area are frustrated with this board. They're frustrated not just with the board, but with the state, federal, and we can't keep paying for entitlements that grow and grow and grow. Yes, serve those people that need to be served, but there's something wrong with the concept of going out and say, we're going to grow the rolls, because that money may not come directly from Buncombe County, but it comes from our federal dollars that we all pay in. And that's a problem. We need a board that will look out for the taxpayer first and foremost, because that's where the money comes from, and that's who you need to be looking out for, because you're elected by the taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. You have a comment? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for hearing all this tonight. I'm Nancy Baker. I live here in Buncombe County. I just want you guys to be very, very aware that there is a committee called CFACT, which is Community Family Advisory Committee. We were mandated by the state. There are 2 members per county in this 8. We are involved from ground up with this waiver. We are taking it back to our counties, so it's not just staying here and not being heard. We meet, we're on work groups, and I've been in it from day one. I have a DD child, and my concern is, right now, if I have a problem with what needs to be served for my child, I got to travel 3 hours to go talk to somebody. I'm 5 minutes from Western Highlands. And unless this comes back here to our county, think of how many of us that are getting older and can't get in our cars and drive to go talk to somebody about the well-being of our children who are adults but are DD. That's my concern and my only concern. And if these counties don't take it up and don't bring it back home, I can't fight for my child. I can't go to Arthur's door and say, you're not doing right for my child. But if it's back here and this cap waiver comes back here, which is now 3 hours away from me, then I have an issue. But just be aware, the community, the family are involved in this. The consumers are involved in this. We hear it every month. They don't do anything at Western Highlands that they don't bring to us. And we either agree with it or we take it back and say, Arthur, we want something done differently, or we want the committees to look at it differently. So we are involved, and we are giving back to our communities what needs to be heard. So they are hearing it, and they are giving us the questions, and we are bringing it back. So just know we are very involved, and we will continue to be involved.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Any other public comment on this issue, this waiver? If not, we will have another session on this next meeting, and that will be March 1. And I would invite each of you, whoever spoke today, will be able to speak at the March 1 meeting. So come back. I want you to digest this. We want you to look at the website. I want you to call any of these folks with questions, and we will make sure it's the right thing, as Ms. Jones said. It's got to be the right thing for the people here, and we're going to be looking for that. Okay. Next up are I have announcements. Board appointments is next up. Thank you. We have 2 vacancies on the Civic Center Commission. This is a city board that we have been invited to make 2 appointments to, and I'll ask the clerk to poll the commission on this.
Vice Chairman Stanley?
Max Queen and Stephen Cole.
Queen and Cole.
Queen and Cole.
Franks and Queen.
Franks and Queen.
Queen and Cole got 3 votes.
All right, Max Queen and Stephen Cole are appointed. Next, we have Board of Equalization and Review. We have 5 vacancies. Are there any nominations?
Chairman, I nominate Karen Donatelli, Mark Morris, Kendall Wright, John Minkes, and Norma Riddle.
Any other nominations? All those in favor of those listed by Vice Chair Stanley, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? then those individuals are appointed. Next, we have the Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee. We have 3 vacancies. Is there any nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Ken Brown.
Any other nominations? All those in favor of Mr. Brown to be appointed to that committee, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Mr. Brown is appointed 5-0. Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee, 4 vacancies. Any nominations?
I'll nominate Jennifer Kiger.
Ms. Kiger's been nominated. Any other nominations for the 4 vacancies? If not, all those in favor of appointing Ms. Kiger, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. She is appointed to that board. The next regular meeting of the Buncombe County Commission will be March 1, 2011, at 4:30. Our meetings can be seen on BCTV, Charter Cable Channel 2, on Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m., Wednesday at 3 p.m., Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m., or online anytime at buncombecounty.org. Mr. Frew, I think you've told us earlier we do need to have a closed session afterwards.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Pursuant to General Statute 143-318-11A4, we have one economic development matter, and pursuant to Section A3, we need to discuss the matter of White versus Buncombe County Sheriff Van Duncan et al. That's a U.S. District Court case, 2010 case CV 14. Other than direction, I anticipate no action this evening.
All right. Next, we have public comment. You have 3 minutes. We are interested in talking about issues. We will not tolerate any personal attacks. We're going to be ladies and gentlemen here. We want to hear you out, but we also want to have decorum here. Yes, ma'am.
Dixie Barkdoff from URTV on the show What's Really Going On in Western North Carolina. I was appalled to hear about the compensation you were getting. My heart goes out to Holly because you had the best reaction. To immediate comments made by board members, I won't be personal. Let's just say you can't unpaint a fence. Once you've said it, it's out there, and it is most likely the truth. I am appalled. This is larceny by pen. That's what somebody said, and I liked it. This is corruption. To take money that you know is way above and beyond when we're so badly hurting, there's just no excuse. The invocation sounded hypocritical, and I ask that you all resign.
You have public comment? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hope?
My name is Hope Herrick. I'm from West Asheville. Well, I remember when we voted against countywide zoning, but you implemented it into law anyway. And now these outrageous monies you are receiving, this, to me, borders on the line of dictatorship. You do not listen to what the people want, and you take our money to advance your own livelihood. And I don't think this cut you voted on is enough. I think you're getting too much.
All right. Any other public comment? Mr. Fryer?
Mr. Gann, I think I've still got 8 people here. I don't know. We can raise their hands. If they don't, I'll go 3.
Okay. Our procedure is if you have 8 people here that wish to waive their time, he can have more time. What is it, 10 minutes? What's the
8 people. Does he have 8?
8 people. If there are 8 people that wish
8 people want to waive their time?
Their time.
Need 8 hands. Doesn't happen.
Okay.
Huh?
You have 3 minutes then. Go ahead, Mr. Fryer.
I got what?
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Mr. Turner, I didn't count it. Okay.
There's 2 hands over here. There's 5 back
I
here.
can't. How many do you count? That 8, that's fine.
Everybody hold your hands up, please.
Okay, you're there. All right, you have 10 minutes. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Fryer.
Won't take me that long. Thank you.
You have 10 minutes. Go ahead.
Commissioners, yes, on what you did as far as your compensation, that was wrong. What you just recompensated yourself, you won't listen to the people. You made the decisions yourself. But what I have here is I have a, matter of fact, I need to give this to you. I received an anonymous letter Saturday. This letter says, Mr. Fryer, since you're so insistent on salaries, why don't you look into the very large raises that the sheriff has requested for his 2 majors, which is going to be approved at the county commission, that was approved at the county commission meeting last week. I do not think it's fair for some of the sheriff's officers to have to lose their jobs to budget cuts while some are getting raises in excess of 30%. Personally, I cannot see any justification for these at this time. Okay. Well, I carried the letter up to, can I use names of the people that work for, like the clerk or the...
We're not going to, if we'll talk about policy, that's fine. We're not going to get any personal attacks.
Well, this is just basically policy. Asking questions is...
Go ahead.
Okay. I went to the clerk. I presented the letter to her Monday morning. She didn't have any idea about all this. So the county manager was there, and I asked her to come in the clerk's office because I will not speak to this lady any longer without somebody being present, because there's some things been blamed on me. So I asked the county manager. She said yes, but it ended up being 3 majors that got the raises. But then she told me to go to Human Resources. So I went to Human Resources, and it comes back from Human Resources that if you look inside, that the raises were approved. The 3 majors made $79,329. Now they make $92,148. So that's pretty good for your top brass. That is real good for your top brass. Where's the little low man? It's $36,000. So I asked him who signed off on this. He told me Miss Green did. So I went back across the road. I went to Miss Green's office, and so happened while Miss Green was in there, I waited outside, and there's a lady here in the audience that's in there, so that was fine with me because I was not alone. I asked Miss Green, plain and simple, why did you approve these raises? She said, I didn't. I said, well, how'd they get approved? You got 5 bosses. And if you look through all the paperwork, I think one of the bosses is sitting up here that was the go-between between Mr. Duncan and Miss Green. There's a go-between. And all these emails, it comes out that it says here, all the commissioners have all above information or agreement with the adjustments. She turned the man down 2 times. She has the authority, I asked, to give a raise without y'all being involved. I'm asking questions. There's a lady in this room here that was sitting there when I did all this. Fact is, these raises, they give a job number. I have here in the folder that job number. It was a job number that was over to jail. I heard it's a lieutenant's job. Well, I guess this gentleman got promoted to a lieutenant since one lieutenant left, and so they took this job that was a $42,000 job and used it to pay the 3 majors $12,800. I asked for 5% cuts when I was here a few weeks ago for anybody above $75,000. This was approved after I spoke. And Miss Green, I have to say it, signed this last Thursday. But why do we have to have an intermediary? Why does the woman say no and y'all say yes? This was done behind closed doors. We're still the public. It's our money, not the sheriff's, not anybody's. It's ours. You might as well say, oh, we took one off the road. Well, if you'd have kept that money in there when the sheriff makes his budget, maybe there'd have been one more person that could stayed working. So I blame that on you five. One person he's going to have to cut because you decided that he could have money for 3 higher administrations. They have vehicles. They use the vehicles. I don't know how you can administrate when, you're all mileage. I have the mileage of one's vehicle here. He's had 2 years. He's an administrator. I thought administrators kind of stayed in their office most of the time. 31,000 miles. It averages 10.81 miles a gallon. There's something wrong. And what you did, Mr. Gant, by telling these people that's left this room because they couldn't stay any longer, that they couldn't speak to you and have a discussion before you cut your raise, and then you told us that this lady over here said that she recommended. I don't believe it. I believe y'all recommended to her. And so the behind closed doors has got to stop. There's TVs up here. We want to do like the city. Miss Jones worked over at the city. When they have an issue, they bring it forward. They don't stack it in a little thing, go, whoops, we're done. And that's what y'all did. All the respect that I had for all 5 of you is now gone. I apologize for that. I know the respect for me from y'all is all gone. And that's just the way it's going to be. But I will keep looking. I will find things. As I said, when I did this, I wanted to look for the physical part of it, where the things were wrong in this county. And you have reduced yourself from an E-Class Mercedes down to a small class Lexus. My opinion is you've took it for 2 years, and now you're going to drop it. Well, if you'd have dropped it 6 months ago, how about just paying it back or just reducing it to 0 for the rest of your period, so if you get voted back in, that you can start with a fresh case and the public understand what it is. You people do not deserve any more money, period. $9,000 for 2 years for technical stuff, $30-some thousand for 2 years for vehicles, and you think you're lowering it $30 under Mecklenburg County is something? Sir, I don't think so. But this, you people, it's in the paperwork here, approved these 3 majors. That's $39,000 that lady didn't prove. She has the authorization. So keep doing it behind closed doors. I'll keep watching. Thank you, Holly.
We welcome your scrutiny. Mr. Sheriff, would you like to comment on that? And since he's an elected official, I'll give you equal time. You're out of order. Sit down, Mike. Go ahead, Mr. Sheriff.
Good evening, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity, maybe not the tone, but the opportunity to be able to address these raises that have not gone into effect yet, but are sitting in the personnel office right now and are getting ready to take effect. We have looked at pay at the Sheriff's Office over the past 4 years, and we've been able to make some adjustments going in and comparing to other like-sized counties, some a little larger, some a little smaller, and we've basically, over the past 2 years previous, been able to bring some of those pay levels up to standard. And these are things that Ms. Green and I have had several conversations about. The last thing that we fixed was our captain's pay, which we brought them up to a level that was fair compensation with the comparables across the other counties. When we looked at the majors positions, we saw that they were extremely low by comparables. And I went to Ms. Green this past December, to sit down and talk with her about those levels and how we could fix that. As we looked at the comparables, we looked at Gaston County, Durham, New Hanover, Wake, Guilford, and Mecklenburg. I think are some of the same counties that Ms. Green uses to compare for other county staff. As we added those salaries together and averaged, we looked at the majors and the chiefs, because one of these positions serves as my chief deputy. And those average salaries between those 7 counties range from $78,936 to $105,784. So what this does with this salary adjustment is it puts Buncombe County dead in the middle. It puts them at with 3 above and 3 below at this pay range. As we were looking at the major salaries, we also discovered that they were being paid out of pay grade. We found out for the past 4 years that they should be in a pay grade 80 and by county ordinance, and they were being paid in a pay grade 79. And we made that, and I also forwarded that on in email. Somewhere about 3 weeks ago, we forwarded those on to the county manager. And we know as time passes on, and we look at these major budget cuts that we're having to look towards, that this is not a great time to have to do this, but it's a problem we've been addressing for the past 4 years, and we needed to fix it. Now, let me clarify a couple things that Mr. Fryer said that were incorrect. We have not laid off anyone. In the county manager's plan, we've had to eliminate positions, and we've done this through attrition. In other words, when people retire or they leave a job position by their own will, we've not filled those positions, looking for this upcoming budget cut in the 11-12 budget. And we're looking at giving somewhere in the neighborhood of about 8 positions back in this upcoming budget. And it's going to be tremendously hard, but we're going to do those things because it's time to do that. We thought that this would be a good opportunity to fix this because we had a person retire from the sheriff's office that, because of dividing up those administrative duties amongst those administrators, which we've been doing over the past 4 years. We've actually reduced 4 administrative positions over the past 4 years. A major's position in 2007 that we turned into a drug enforcement officer position. Basically, we flattened the curve and turned it into a working position. A captain's position, which we turned into our criminal interdiction position that we come in here and talk about with the success with that. We turned the captain's position into that drug interdiction officer's position. And in a lieutenant's position, which we gave back last year, we had to eliminate 6 positions last year, which we were able to do through attrition. And this latest position, we used this opportunity to eliminate this position, fix this pay inequity, and we actually will return a net savings to the county of $18,784 at the end of the day by returning that position. Mr. Fryer's correct about one thing. It's tough economic times, and it's a bad time to bring these things forward. But it's also, this is an issue that we've been looking at for 4 years. And as we move forward, I'm considering reducing my salary. When you look at that pay scale above those top 7 counties, I fall pretty much right in the middle of the 7. But for those of us that do make over $100,000 a year, and I'm the only one in the sheriff's office that does, I think we have to look at some reductions as we move forward to kind of bear the burden of this along with our staff. Thank you. Any questions?
No, ma'am. No, this is public comment, and we're going to hear from the sheriff. Sheriff, if you want to make yourself available at the next meeting, that's fine. We're going to get public comment right now.
I'd be glad to. She asked one question, and I wouldn't mind to answer that.
Okay, all right. All right.
You asked if my secretary had gotten a raise?
$7,000 raise.
The only raises that my secretary has gotten have been the ones that the county commissioners have given through cost of living. I have given her no pay increase.
All right, just questions. If you have a question to share, he's willing to take questions. And this is a little unusual. I'm going to do this because he says, Jerry, do you have a question for the sheriff?
Yes, sir.
He wants to speak.
Okay. Anybody have questions
public
for Sheriff?
comment.
All right, public comment. All right, Sheriff, thank you. I think that's all.
Public.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Jerry Rice?
Good
Chairman, members of the board. I've watched this for years, how the county manager brings about issues to the board, and she brings these 7 different counties about every time for the last 17, 18 years she's been here. And what she does is compare the dollar amount to whatever dollar amount we're looking at. I want you to take a different approach. You look at the counties that she presented and ask how many people are living in those counties compared to the county that we live in. Mecklenburg County, for example. Do you think there's only 227,000 people in Mecklenburg? Why don't you look at your comparisons based on population rather than showing numbers? Figures don't lie, but liars figure.
Jerry, if you go there again, I'm going to come shut you down, okay?
Do what?
We're not doing personal attacks.
Don't
go there again.
I didn't attack nobody.
Go ahead. You got your time. Continue.
Must have got you.
No, we're not going to have personal attacks. That's the way we run this place. All right, Al. Goodbye. He's out, sir. Next up. Who's next? Mr. Plowey. You have a public comment.
Get him out of here now.
My name is Walter Plowey, and I've just got a couple real quick comments to make.
Sir.
Modesto, California, and their city and county staff, are we going the route of California? And I would like to ask the audience, how many people in this taxpayers in this room are making more than $92,000?
Walter, this is comment to us. Go ahead, sir.
I'm finished. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, in the back.
If they were one of the 8, they get to speak.
All right.
You raised
your
your
hand.
You gave up your time, buddy. You raised your hand so Mike could speak.
Did anybody raise their hand, wave their, and we say you waved your time?
No, you raised your hand, young lady.
Okay.
Peggy didn't.
All right, Miss Bennett.
Miss Bennett.
All right. And we have public comment every meeting.
All right.
Before I start, I have to comment on that screen up there. The voice and the sound is off about a second or so, and it drives me crazy sitting back there. You're not speaking. I don't know how these are, but that was terrible.
We'll look at it. Thank you, Miss Bennett.
Thank you.
And that's not our time. Let's start her over again.
My name's Peggy Bennett, and I live in Leicester. Chairman Gant and Commissioners, I have appeared before the Board of Commissioners for over 20 years. But the reason behind my appearance here today is the most disturbing time I've ever been here. Of course, I'm referring to the overly generous perks that you receive biweekly. I represent an organization known as Citizens for Change that has been active for 12 years, and I am here to tell you that the recently proposed car allowance reduced from $1,300 per month to $640 per month is not acceptable to us or most of the county. We suggest that each commissioner maintain a mileage log and be paid for the actual miles traveled. This is a fair and honest way to use the taxpayers' money. Being paid $640 a month for travel without any verification of the miles traveled is unreasonable. It is not difficult to maintain a mileage log, as you recently wanted us to believe, Chairman Gant. Other county employees are required to use a mileage log, and their reimbursement is based on actual mileage travel. Why should anything less be required of our county commissioners? The money all comes from the same place, the taxpayers. We want better management of our money, and you are being given a chance to show us that you are listening to us. Do not violate our trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Yes, sir, in the back. I think you commented on the health thing.
I did.
Okay, you're welcome. You have to comment on the regular open mic.
I'm not up here to beat up on your salary.
Any comments you wish to make, sir? We're here to hear you. Mr. King.
What you're witnessing, I believe, is a breakdown in trust from the people and the commission. And I wouldn't have, the salary's not the issue. I think the problem and what people really are upset about is that they aren't getting their dollars worth that's coming into the county. We expect a county commission that looks at, I'd be willing to pay you more if you did some of the things that looked out for the taxpayer, benefited the taxpayer. One of the things that's most troubling to me is this commission represents city, county, everyone in Buncombe County. But those of us that live in the county are at constant threat from these municipalities for forced annexation. We've never had one commissioner ever stand up against forced annexation.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Okay.
Not true, sir.
All right, I stand corrected. I just never heard it.
You hadn't been paying attention.
Well, if you'll send Mr. You can leave your address, we'll send you our resolutions. Go
Okay,
ahead.
very good. All right, but that's all I've got to say. I'd love to see the resolution. Thank you.
There are a lot of them.
My opinion.
Yes, sir. In the front row.
I'm Jeff Turner, and I care less about all that mess. You know what you've done, what you need, so you can explain it to someone else. I'm here for the URTV, and at this point in my life, after surviving cancer 5.5 years, that's the baby I've got. That's where I spend my time and my energy and my money. I didn't have time to make a stapled presentation, and this is all handwritten, and I may just throw it in the trash, but may have. This is basically the whole presentation. This is my perspective on it over there. I don't know about all the money. You say you got no control over it. I don't know. Nothing happens in this county that you don't control. So there's several perspectives on that. Many of this stuff, of course, you think that people want to support you. My family supported me, and then these are all folks mostly from our county when you start looking at these pages, and I'm sorry it's so sloppy, so please don't just throw it away without considering. If you'll notice, I put down there on the item G, the bottom line, over at the right-hand side of it. And to me, that's the biggest part of the whole report, other than the other folks I've had on the show and my family support. This bottom line here is all the folks that's affected by me doing a show. These are all the companies that are affected. Let me say it that way, okay? County Line BP right by my house, and it's a whole path over here and a whole path going back. I ate at restaurants. Things I buy at these places, contribute to me doing the televised show, the DVDs, the tapes, the batteries, the wires, all that stuff. I'm trying to implore upon you that that place has a worth other than just a moan and groan, and I believe that you should be able to see that there, and hopefully you will. I am begging you. 27% that I had on a little vote not too long ago is begging you to keep this station alive. I think that it adds also probably to some of your safety that folks can come over here and vent their things out on TV for an hour without getting in your face and making a mockery of this fine panel. I'm short on my time here, so I hope you can keep it alive. I will ask you if you owe them, send them, whatever. I think you just did. I'm also going to ask you to keep this station alive till we can put it up for a referendum vote next year, whenever the next possible big vote is. I would ask you to give them money to keep the station open and pay the rent and the power. If they can't do the rest of it, I don't appreciate it. It's went up 3 times.
Okay. Mr. Turner, we'll make this part of the record. Thank you.
Appreciate you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Next up, yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Lisa Landis, and I am the producer of Glow Lady TV over at URTV. And I talk about things that you don't see on mass media. And a lot of it is prophecy and dawn of the galactic underworld that started in November this past year. And that is a revealing of the aggressive male dominance in society will begin to crumble. And we see it here. These things that have so far been hidden are being revealed. And that's just one of the things that I talk about. I'm very passionate about what I talk about and what I do. And I have to ask, would you actually work your job if you did not get paid? Because that's what I do. I'm there to serve the people with information that they won't hear otherwise. And I ask you, would you work your job if you did not get paid? That's how passionate I am. I also work some other shows. I work can't talk about Citizen Speaks. What's really going on in Western North Carolina? I also do Green on Green. What's really going on in Western North Carolina? Well, that's revealing a lot of the corruption that's going on around here, and that's one of the things. I was in front of you a couple of weeks ago talking about the Egyptians, and we see what the Egyptian people did when the Egyptian people came together. And our government tries to deny us our First Amendment right, which is our freedom to speak and our freedom to hold you guys accountable. And it's like, if you're going to shut us down, well, wait a minute, I have to question, why do you want us why do you want to shut our mouths? And then I look on the government channel and I see all of this community interest programming and wonder how much money that you're paying to produce the same thing that should be on URTV. Another thing, it's like we have all of these problems in society, and how can we solve these problems? And when people have solutions, it's like, okay, yeah, we'll think about it. Well, here's something to think about. Here's a DVD that I produced, and it is Dr. Milton Bird, and it's about medical cannabis, and not just medical cannabis, but also industrial hemp. You talked about how you saved 250 million trees by recycling newspaper. Well, how many forests can we save if we actually investigate renewable resources that we have solutions for? So I guess I'm about out of time. Oh, I got another 28 seconds so I can keep going. Okay, cool. Let's see. Dan Brown's Journal, Democracy Now!, Citizen Speaks, Compassionate Resolution. These are all things that we really need to start looking at, that we really need to consider. I mean, all of these things that you guys do, I have no skeletons in my closet, and I've done a lot of stuff in my life. It's all out there. And the planetary that we're in, all of this stuff is going to be revealed, so I hope that you guys check out this DVD.
We will.
And
we'll get copies
for the rest.
We'll get copies for everybody on the board. Yes, sir, Mr. Penland.
Chairman Gant, fellow commissioners. My name's Aaron Penland. This is not the first time that I've been here. I've been coming to you guys for almost 3 years. I've seen more interaction with the 5 commissioners. I've actually heard every one of you speak tonight. That's the first time in 3 years that I've heard every member speak other than saying, yeah. You actually talked to the people. And there was a room full of people there, and that was great. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen all the time. But what you guys are getting beat up enough on the money, so I'll leave that alone. The money that could be saved or the money that could be spent, how many teachers could you buy with that money? How many school teachers could you actually buy with $200,000 if you could eliminate one position? But what I want to hit on is when I was here last time I talked to you, and you had recently nominated your health director, Ms. Gibby Harris, to be the liaison with the EPA and NCDNR. I asked you what if she's met with them, how many times she's met with them, what she's discussed with them, what plans they have got, and if they plan on doing any destruction of the building. All this money or rather, let me go back here. I'm getting kind of twisted. She just received Health Director of the Year out of North Carolina. And she's concerned about the health. But what about all the people that live on Chapel Hill Church Road, the people that live on Penner's Cove Road, Mills Gap Road, the ones that are breathing the fumes in from CTS? How many times has CTS been brought up? And how many times, Mr. Stanley, when you asked, what are they going to do? What are Ian's going to do about it? Have you ever followed it up? Has anybody followed it up and called and said, what are you going to do about this? You know, we stand up and we say it all the time. We're peons. You know, we're not you guys. You guys have some authority, some power.
Not with them people.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You've got to start with you guys. You guys are our first line. You are our first line of government. And we come to you to ask you to help us. And it's supposed to be what you do. Your job is an honorary job that you're elected to by the people. And you should act for the people in good faith for the people. And not to profit and not to benefit yourselves.
Madam Clerk, would you send all the letters and the correspondence we have sent both to U.S. senators in the federal level that are responsible for this mess and the state level that are responsible for the underground? Make sure, Mr. Penley, I think we have his address. If we don't, let's get that and make sure he knows what we have done. Next, sir. Yes.
He raised his hand.
Okay. Anybody?
But you voted her out. You wouldn't let her speak because she said, I voted. You said, no, she couldn't speak.
No. If you raised your hand to let him talk for 10 minutes, you can't speak. You gave up your right to speak.
But she didn't get to speak because she said, I raised. Excuse me, I'm not arguing.
Okay.
Let him speak.
Come on up, sir. Thank you, sir. But anybody, you know, our rules are if you raise your hand, the whole idea is you give that time to another individual. But we're going to go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you. I'm not up here to criticize you guys. I'm just trying to shed
We're here
some
to
light.
hear public comment. Go ahead.
Well, I want to thank you for the job that you've done. Obviously, the people in Buncombe County believed in
And
you.
where you're from, and we'll start over.
I'm from Asheville, Fairview.
And what's your name, sir?
Robert Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
And I'm a business
Start
owner.
over again, 3 minutes. Go ahead.
I'm a business owner here in Asheville, and I do want to thank you for the job. The people here voted for you to do the job. Some emotions have gotten involved in this room, coming both from the county commissioners and from some of the people in here. I think that's very poor from both parts. That should have never shown, but that's my opinion. But one thing that happens, and you can hear this on the national news, when people in power get that power, they don't want to sacrifice the power for the good of the people. And that's what the fall of the Roman Empire was. I'm not saying you guys are doing that, but that's what's led to the emotions because people don't feel like you're watching out for them. Obama wants to freeze government wages for 5 years. What I've heard in here is let's give all these people raises. Let's spend more money. I appreciate Van Duncan cutting his sheriff's budget by $18,000. $18,000 is like Obama's $100 million out of a $14 trillion budget. It's a spit in the ocean. We have to take charge of this as county commissioners and as human beings in Asheville for our community. I think the people with Western Highlands did an excellent presentation. They tried to save money. They didn't ask for money. They had a plan. It was organized. It was laid out. And I think that's what we need is to work together to pull this community back together. What do y'all get, $40,000 or $50,000? That's nothing. You just gave away $10 million on a park project for the little restrooms. Well, I hope it doesn't turn out like down at the bus terminal, the little booth there where all the homeless people come in and hang out. And I don't think it will. But these are the things that we need to think to the future versus what's right in front of us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Yes, sir, Milton. Good to see you again, sir. Former councilman from Fletcher, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Good to see you. Come in. And Land to Sky partner at one point.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Milton Bird. Yes, I'm a former elected official, 3 terms of office as a councilman, and a former Land to Sky board member. I'm here as I am a Buncombe County resident. I understand the plight of the scenario we've just got through witnessing, having been in that role, sharing with you folks up there. One of the challenges we all need to be looking at right now is how our bureaucracy has been managed in a way that choices, not so much by an intentional deceit, but a result of a breakdown in effective communications. The biggest challenge I would like to communicate to you I see right now is how you lead us out of this conflicts of interest into a process of good leadership that gets communication back to the people, for the people, with the people. there is a real outcry going on here that's greater than the issue of how our bureaucratic process gets redirected into more challenging economic times coming at us in this coming year. If we don't have leadership in our communication that guides our bureaucracy in the direction that we need, we're going to have a breakdown of that correction. We're going to have the perception that people who are in elite position win, and people who are in public positions of the society are losing. This is escalating more and more in the divide of the human event. This thing we saw in Egypt is that kind of outcry, a voice of not being heard, not being understood, but even more importantly, not being communicated with. You guys actually have a marvelous opportunity, a unique opportunity of leadership to take this personal challenge on the subject of money and say, all right, let's redirect this so we all have a place of effective communication, effective leadership, and where we, as a collective society, are working together and networking for problem solving. We will have bureaucratic mistakes. We will have issues of how numbers get looked at. But when we get to the point of saying, people, we talk about it, we look at it, we figure it out, then we can actually get to problem solving together. And we got to get going in that direction, or we're going to be tearing ourselves apart in this country. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Doctor. Any other public comment? Yes, sir. Mr. Pendler?
My name is Eric Pendler. I live in the Arden area, and I'm up here today a couple of different reasons. I've really been outraged to hear and see what's going on in the newspapers. One thing that really got me was the snide remark of, I wouldn't work for a penny less, and that was a joke. People that serve on this board, you serve the community. You folks work for us. You're not above us. We're not above you. But we count on you folks to help us with the problems that we have in our community. I want to commend Holly. I thank you for making the statement that you said that that you could see how they could, your instincts say they could cut some out of the budget. You were the only one that stood up to make that kind of comment. I think that one thing the folks you should consider is that for the car allowance, you should consider doing miles driven. Each of you are a county employee. Therefore, other county employees have to keep records of the miles they drive, where they drive, and what the business was for. Each of you should also do the same thing. What I've given you here today is just, sure, I know my time is going quick, but each of you here are a county commissioner. I don't know if any of you have other jobs. Are all of you employed full-time? Can I ask?
We're just here for public comment.
Okay. I know, for example, I know, Mr. Gant, I know it must be difficult to run a law firm a long time, and I think you work on Metropolitan Sewer Board and the Asheville Airport Board and county commissioners.
We all serve on a lot of boards.
Okay. Well, what I'm saying, though, is I don't see how anybody can focus and do such a good job on one and really serve the people if your time is so divided that you have this commission, this commission, this commission, and how in the world can you focus on all of it? And I think everyone you need to put on your website what other commissions that each of you serve on. The people need to know what our commissioners are doing, what you're doing to help us. The money that could have been saved through this could have been used to run water line. We were told there's no money to run water out to the people on Chapel on the Church Road. But if you would cut this money out, there would be. What I gave each of you was a cup with your name on it. Inside of it is a tea bag. The Tea Party made a big change this last election, and the election's coming up.
Thank you, Mr. Penland. Any other public comment? Mr. Nesbitt?
I believe Mr. Nesbitt held his hand up when Fryer got up.
Okay.
No, Mr. Nesbitt didn't. You can check with your attorney. No, sir, I did not.
He put his hand up. Let him speak, Evan.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Nesbitt.
I thought you'd given him a cup of some of that CTS water there. I thought that's what you gave him. My name's Chad Nesbitt. I'm chairman of the Buncombe County Republican Party. I represent over 48,000 Republicans here in Buncombe. There's a couple of things I wanted to mention to you. On your consent agenda, the Buncombe County Republican Party would very much like to ask why that you put through sterilization of people in your consent agenda and didn't bring that out. Is it the point of this commission to start giving vasectomies out with the taxpayers' money? This kind of stuff that we see with this board is ridiculous, and we will be sure and bring that to your attention every time that you do something crazy like that. One other thing here about County Manager Wanda Green. Her salary, to our understanding, is $208,000 a year. There are just over 200-some thousand people here in Buncombe County. In Mecklenburg County, there is 845,000 people. It is one of the largest in our state, and their county manager makes $245,000 a year. If you do the math here, and by population, and according to what our CPAs are saying, the county manager should make only $75,000 a year instead of $208,000. And we would certainly ask that if you guys are going to take a pay cut, which we're glad that you did, we still think it should be more, then the county manager should take a pay cut as well. And furthermore, Ms. Green said that she thought that there should be a third party come and evaluate what she showed up on the screen a little while ago. I disagree with that. The Republican Party disagrees with that. We think that that's your job, and we shouldn't spend any more money getting a third party to look into how you can do different cuts within your own budget and do cuts with your own pay grade. David, no personal attack, trust me. But you did say when you started this thing that it was going to be that you were going to do the right thing. I would say to you that you should have done the right thing when you got elected, and all of you should do the right thing when you get elected. Giving yourself and making sure that you're making that kind of money, in our eyes, is just absolutely ridiculous. These people have taken the wind out of me. I feel for them. I feel for what they said. But as chairman of the Buncombe County Republican Party, it is my duty to ask for the resignation of one particular person, and that would be Bill Stanley, for your comments that you made in that paper. It will not stand. You either owe the people an apology or your resignation.
That's good. Thank you, Mr. Nesbitt. Any other public comment? Yes, sir. Front, second row.
Commissioners, Chairman, thank you. Troy Hornberger from Buncombe County, a member of URTV, Asheville advocate for folks in the community. Looking at the URTV issue and just concerned about it at this point, I studied some media law in college about the PEG funds and how they're distributed. I looked at the video program distribution from the Department of North Carolina and talked to Richard Jones there, and he detailed the information and went through it with me of the funds that were released from the Department of North Carolina to the County of Buncombe. So at this point, I just need to see an itemized list of the budget or a finance report of BCTV and URTV from its inception, both from its inception. If I could request that from the commissioners, if that's possible.
We will give all the material we have. That was an independent board. I'm sure they would do that also.
Excellent.
And if you'll leave your name with the clerk, we'll get that to you.
I will do. And the issue standing is because there was a change in the franchise, and so when the state transitioned from state franchises, we still have 2 certified public access channels, paid broadcasting channels, that should receive funding. And what they did is they reappropriated a prorated percentage based on the satellite and TV percent. So there still is a sizable amount that should be generated based on that percent, which was, like I said, prorated, more or less the equivalent to what it was before the transition. So I just need to get the information and find out what's going on, is to be fair as all. And on a light note, it took 90 years, but there was a local law struck down for profanity that within earshot, it's freedom of speech. It's not against the law any longer, but it's something like that. It goes to figure that it takes 90 years to stand out for free speech, but goes to show you that things aren't always fair, but eventually we get there. So.
Mr. Hornberger, we'll both get the documents you request and an
Excellent.
explanation of your question
Should I
about
speak with
funding. If you'll leave the contact info with
Ma'am?
us.
Okay. Should
Yeah,
I
just
go ahead?
just leave it at the table. We'll get it.
Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Appreciate it, definitely. Have a good night, y'all.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any other public comment tonight?
We will go into closed session.
Mr. Chairman, before we close, I've been here, maybe in my 23rd year, and they ain't resigning, son. You wishful thinking, you know that. A majority of people put me in here, a majority of people take me out, maybe. Some of you tried 12 times to do that, and it didn't work. And it may not work this next time either. But I'm sure you're going to try again. But it's amazing to me. I've served on this board with two fine Republican people. They drew the same, money. They drew the mileage. They drew that. One was chairman for 8 years, and this salary thing never came up when we had a Republican on this board. I don't understand that, really. See, y'all don't want to fuss at nobody but Democrats. But that's fine. That's part of the party politics. Enough said.
All right.
Move we go into closed session.
Make a motion.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We'll be in closed session.
But no, I got through.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll do our best.